Imagine a letter slipped under the door of Hercule Poirot's London flat. Its elegant script, whispering of a secret so explosive it could unravel the legacy of his creator, Agatha Christie. What hidden truth did the Queen of Crime bury during her mysterious 1926 disappearance? Why did she hide a manuscript that could redefine the detective genre? And who is the shadowy figure stalking Poirot as he chases clues from Devon's misty manors to London's literary haunts? In a tale of cryptic diaries, coded notes, in a revolutionary novel called The Unseen Truth, Poirot risks everything to uncover a secret that could change how the world sees Agatha Christie forever. Will he outwit a ruthless collector desperate to steal the manuscript? Or will the truth remain buried, lost to time? Dive into a suspense-filled journey where every clue raises more questions, and the greatest detective faces his most personal case yet. Chapter 1. The Mysterious Letter in the Quiet Elegance of His London Flat. Hercule Poirot sat at his polished mahogany desk, the morning light filtering through heavy drapes to cast a golden sheen across the room. The air was thick with the scent of his preferred tisane, a delicate blend of chamomile and lavender, steaming gently in a porcelain cup. The world outside bustled with the predictable chaos of a city in motion, but within these walls, order reigned supreme. Poirot's life was one of symmetry and precision. His little gray cells always attuned to the subtlest irregularities in the tapestry of human affairs. On this particular morning, however, an irregularity had presented itself in the form of a letter. It had arrived with the morning post, slipped unobtrusively among bills and invitations, yet it stood out like a discordant note in a symphony. The envelope was of fine quality, cream-colored and heavy, with no return address. The handwriting was elegant, almost calligraphic, yet it bore a hurried quality, as though the writer had been driven by urgency. Poirot's keen eyes noted the postmark, Torquay, Devon, a curious choice, for it was the birthplace of his creator, the inimitable Agatha Christie, whose genius had given him life. But it was the contents of the letter that set his heart racing and his mind ablaze. He slit the envelope with a silver letter opener, his movements deliberate, and unfolded the single sheet within. The words, penned in black ink, were few, but potent. Monsieur Poirot, you pride yourself on unraveling the mysteries of the human heart, are summoned to a puzzle greater than any you have faced. In a manor in Devon lies a diary, locked and hidden, written by she who made you. It holds a secret that could unravel her legacy. Seek it where the river bends, but beware, there are those who would keep it buried. A friend of Truth Poirot read the letter thrice, his mustache twitching slightly as he absorbed its implications. A diary by Agatha Christie herself. The notion was extraordinary. He had always regarded his creator as a woman of unparalleled intellect, her stories woven with such precision that even he, her greatest detective, marveled at their construction. But a secret, one that could unravel her legacy. It was a challenge that stirred his very soul. For Poirot was not merely a solver of crimes, but a guardian of truth, however inconvenient it might be. He leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled before him, and allowed his mind to dissect the letter's every nuance. The anonymity of the sender suggested caution, perhaps fear. The reference to she who made you was peculiar, almost theatrical, as though the writer knew of his unique existence as a fictional creation brought to life by Christie's pen. And the mention of Devon, of a manor and a river's bend, hinted at a specific location, one tied to Agatha's own history. Torquay was her birthplace, yes, but she had also spent time in other parts of Devon, including the grand estates that dotted its countryside. The phrase, those who would keep it buried, was particularly troubling, implying opposition, perhaps danger. Poirot's lips curled into a faint smile. Danger to him, was merely an invitation to exercise his intellect. He rose, his movements as precise as a metronome, and crossed to the bookshelf where he kept a collection of Christie's novels. They were not merely books to him, but a testament to the mind that had shaped his own. He selected The Mysterious Affair at Styles, her first triumph, and ran his fingers over the cover. "Madame Christie," he murmured, "what secret did you hide from the world? And why does it call to Hercule Poirot now?" The decision was made before the question had fully formed. He would go to Devon. He would find this manor, this diary, and this secret. To do otherwise would be to betray the very purpose of his existence. But first, he required information. The letters of vagueness demanded reconnaissance, and Poirot was not a man to rush blindly into the unknown. He summoned his faithful valet, George, with a sharp ring of the bell. "George," he said as the man appeared, impeccably dressed and deferential, "I require a train to Torquay, departing this afternoon. And please arrange for a motor car to be available upon my arrival. Shall be traveling to a manor in the countryside, though the precise location remains, for the moment, a mystery." "Very good, sir," George replied, his tone betraying no curiosity, though Poirot knew the man's loyalty was matched by a quiet fascination with his employer's adventures. "Shall I pack for an extended stay? A week, perhaps more, and include my heaviest coat?" The Devon air. It is brisk in autumn. As George withdrew, Poirot turned his attention to preparations. He packed a small notebook, his fountain pen, and the magnifying glass tools of his trade as essential as his intellect. The letter he placed carefully in a leather portfolio, its words already committed to memory, but its physical presence a talisman of the mystery to come. By noon, he was aboard the train, the rhythmic clatter of the wheels a soothing counterpoint to the whirlwind of his thoughts. Torquay greeted him with a damp chill, the sea air mingling with the scent of autumn leaves. The motor car, a sleek black Daimler, awaited him at the station, and Poirot instructed the driver to take him to the finest hotel in town, where he could establish a base of operations. The Hotel Majestic, with its grand facade and views of the coastline, suited his tastes perfectly. He settled into a suite overlooking the harbor, his mind already mapping the steps ahead. The letter had mentioned a manor, and Devon was replete with such estates, many tied to the gentry or to literary figures like Agatha herself. Greenway House, her holiday home, was a possibility, but it was too well known, too public. The diary, if it existed, would be hidden somewhere less conspicuous, a place tied to her personal history rather than her public persona. Poirot consulted a map of the region, his finger tracing the rivers that wound through the countryside. The River Dart, with its serpentine path, caught his eye. "Where the river bends," he murmured. Bend could be literal, a curve in the river's coursor, metaphorical, a turning point in Agatha's life. He decided to begin with local knowledge. Torquay's residents, particularly those of an older generation, might recall stories of Agatha's time in Devon. He ventured to the town's library, stately building of red brick, and introduced himself to the head librarian, Miss Clara Henshaw. She was a woman of advanced years, her silver hair pinned neatly, her eyes sharp with intelligence. Poirot presented himself as a literary enthusiast researching Agatha Christie's early years. A half-truth that served his purpose. "Miss Henshaw," he began, his accent polished and his manner charming, "I am Hercule Poirot, a great admirer of Madame Christie's work. I seek to understand her connection to Devon, particularly any lesser-known estates she may have frequented, perhaps a manor near a river." Miss Henshaw's eyes narrowed slightly, as though weighing his intent. "Agatha was born here, of course," she said, "and Greenway is well known. But there were other places. The old Tavistock Manor, for instance, near the Dart. It belonged to a friend of her family, a place she visited in her youth. It's been empty for years, though Mrs. Tavistock, the caretaker, still lives there." Poirot's heart quickened, though his face remained impassive. "This Tavistock Manor. It is near a bend in the river, perhaps." Miss Henshaw nodded. "The dart curves sharply near the estate. It's a lonely place now, but it was grand in its day. Cather wrote there sometimes, or so the stories go." "Merci, Mademoiselle," Poirot said, bowing slightly. "You have been most helpful." The drive to Tavistock Manor took him through rolling hills and dense woods, the landscape cloaked in the golden hues of autumn. The manor itself was a relic of Georgian splendor, its stone facade weathered but imposing, its windows dark save for a single light in a ground-floor room. Poirot dismissed the driver, preferring to approach on foot, his senses alert. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and pine, and the distant rush of the river Dart was a constant murmur. He knocked on the heavy oak door, and after a long pause, it creaked open to reveal Mrs. Tavistock, a woman in her 60s, her face lined with worry. Her eyes darted nervously, as though expecting trouble. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Hercule Poirot, madame," he replied, removing his hat with a flourish. "I am a detective, seeking information about a matter of great delicacy. May I enter?" Her hesitation was palpable, but Poirot's charm, honed over decades, prevailed. She led him into a dimly lit parlor, its furniture covered in dust sheets, the air staled with neglect. "This place is no longer what it was," she said, her hands twisting a handkerchief. "What do you want here?" Poirot chose his words carefully. "I have reason to believe that Madame Agatha Christie left something of value in this manor, a diary, perhaps hidden away. I seek only to understand her wishes, to honor her legacy." Mrs. Tavistock's face paled, and her eyes flickered to a portrait above the fireplace, stern-looking man in Victorian attire. "I don't know about any diary," she said, too quickly. "This house has been empty for years. There's nothing here." Poirot's smile was gentle but unyielding. "Madame, the eyes of Hercule Poirot see what others miss. Permit me to look, and I shall disturb nothing." Reluctantly, she agreed, though she insisted on accompanying him. They began in the library, a vast room lined with shelves of moldering books, the air thick with the scent of old leather and dust. Poirot's gaze swept the room, noting the symmetry or lack thereof. A bookcase near the window was slightly askew, its base misaligned with the floor. He approached it, his fingers brushing the wood, and detected a faint seam. With a gentle push, a panel swung open, revealing a hidden compartment. Mrs. Tavistock gasped, but Poirot's triumph was short-lived. The compartment was empty, save for a single slip of paper. He retrieved it, his heart sinking as he read the words scrawled in the same elegant script as the letter. "The truth lies where the river bends." Poirot's mustache twitched. The diary was not here, but the clue confirmed he was on the right path. He turned to Mrs. Tavistock, whose face was a mask of fear. "Madame," he said softly, "who else knows of this place?" "No one," she whispered, but her eyes betrayed her. Someone had been here, someone who had taken the diary and left this taunting clue. Poirot thanked her, his mind already racing to the next step. The river's bend awaited, and with it the promise of answers as he stepped into the gathering dusk, the manor looming behind him. Poirot felt the thrill of the chase. The secret of Agatha Christie was within his grasp, and he would not rest until it was unveiled. The chapter closed with him standing by the Daimler, the slip of paper in his hand, his little gray cells alight with purpose. Chapter 2. The river's secret. Hercule Poirot stood at the edge of Tavistock Manor's gravel drive, the slip of paper from the hidden compartment clutched in his gloved hand. The words, "The truth lies where the river bends," seemed to pulse with a life of their own, a siren call to his insatiable curiosity. The Devon dusk was settling in, painting the sky in hues of amber and violet, and the air carried the damp chill of autumn. Laced with the faint tints of the nearby river Dart, Poirot's mind, ever orderly, was already dissecting the clue. But River's Bend was no mere metaphor, he decided. It was a precise location, a place where Agatha Christie's secret awaited. But the presence of the note, left in place of the diary, suggested a game challenge laid down by someone who knew he was coming. This was no ordinary mystery, and Poirot relished the complexity. He summoned the Daimler, its engine purring softly as it emerged from the shadows of the manor's oaks. To the river Dart, he instructed the driver, a taciturn man named Jenkins, who nodded without question. "Find me a place where the river bends sharply, near this estate. There is something I must see." The drive was brief but winding, the road hugging the contours of the countryside. Poirot's eyes scanned the landscape, noting the gentle hills, the occasional stone wall, and the ever-present murmur of the river. His thoughts returned to the letter that had set him on this path, its anonymous author, a figure shrouded in mystery. Who was this friend of truth, a guardian of Agatha's legacy, or an adversary seeking to manipulate him? The absence of the diary in the manor's compartment was troubling. But the clue left behind was deliberate, a breadcrumb in a trail designed to test his intellect. Poirot's mustache twitched with the hint of a smile. He was equal to the task. Jenkins slowed the car as they approached a narrow lane, the river visible through a copse of willows. "There's a bend up ahead, sir," he said, pointing. "The Dart turns sharp-like, near an old boathouse. Not many come this way anymore." "Parfait," Poirot murmured, his eyes gleaming. "Take me there, and then you may wait." Boathouse was a weathered structure, its timbers grayed by time and the elements. It's perched precariously at the river's edge where the Dart curved in a near-perfect arc. The surrounding area was overgrown with reeds and brambles. The silence, broken only by the gentle lapping of water against the bank. Poirot stepped from the car, his patent leather shoes sinking slightly into the damp earth. He dismissed Jenkins with a nod, preferring solitude for this investigation. The boathouse, he sensed, held answers, or at least the next piece of the puzzle. The door was secured with a rusted padlock, but Poirot's keen eyes noted fresh scratches around the keyhole, suggesting recent use. He examined the lock closely, his magnifying glass catching the glint of fading sunlight. "Someone has been here," he murmured, "and not so long ago." The lock was old but sturdy, and Poirot, ever resourceful, produced a set of small tools from his coat pocket. With a deft hand, he worked the mechanism, his fingers moving with the precision of a watchmaker. The lock yielded with a satisfying click, and the door creaked open, revealing a dim interior heavy with the scent of mildew and old wood. Inside, the boathouse was a cavern of shadows, its single window obscured by grime. A rickety table stood in one corner, littered with fishing tackle and faded maps. Against the far wall was a wooden chest, its surface carved with intricate designs that spoke of a bygone era. Poirot's heart quickened. If the diary was anywhere, it would be here, in this forgotten relic by the river's bend. He approached the chest, noting a combination lock embedded in its lid. The dials, for a number, were etched with numbers from 0 to 9. A code, then. But what? Poirot sat on a nearby stool, his mind racing through possibilities. Clue had led him here, but the lock demanded a key of its own, a sequence tied to Agatha Christie's life. He considered her novels, her characters, her milestones. Then it struck him, her birth year, 1890. A simple choice, perhaps too simple. But Poirot had learned that simplicity often masked profundity. He set the dials 1, 8, 9, 0 and held his breath. The chest clicked open, the sound echoing in the stillness. Inside, There was no diary, but a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon. Poirot's disappointment was tempered by curiosity. He lifted the bundle, noting the elegant handwriting on the envelope, Agatha's own, unmistakable, from the marginalia he had studied in her novels. The letters were addressed to a Miss E.L. with no surname or address. He opened the first, his eyes scanning the words with reverence. My dearest E., the weight of my silence grows heavier each day. In December, when I vanished, it was not merely grief that drove me, but a truth I could not share. I have written something that could change everything, but I fear its power. It is hidden, safe for now, but I entrust you with its secret. If the world is to know, it must be through one who understands. Yours, Agatha Poirot's breath caught. December 1926, the infamous disappearance. When Agatha Christie vanished for 11 days, sparking a nationwide search, the official story spoke of amnesia, of personal turmoil. But these letters hinted at something more, a deliberate act, a secret project, perhaps the diary itself. He read on, each letter revealing fragments of Agatha's state of mind. She spoke of a crisis of the soul, of a manuscript that defied convention, and of a fear that its revelation would alter her legacy. The final letter was the most cryptic. E. The river guards my truth, but only one with a mind as sharp as my own can find it. The bend is but the beginning. Seek the shadow in Torquay. Poirot folded the letters carefully, placing them in his portfolio. The diary was not here, but the letters were a treasure in themselves, a window into Agatha's hidden world. He stood, his mind alight with new questions. Who was Miss E.L.? What was this manuscript that frightened even its creator? And what shadow lurked in Torquay? The clue was clear. His next step was to return to the town of Agatha's birth, to uncover the identity of this confidant and the meaning of the shadow. As he stepped outside, the last light of day was fading, casting long shadows across the river. Poirot paused, his senses suddenly alert. A rustle in the reeds, a flicker of movement at the edge of his vision. He turned, his cane raised instinctively, but saw only the swaying of branches in the evening breeze. Yet the feeling persisted. Someone was watching. He scanned the surroundings, his eyes catching a faint glint in the undergrowth, perhaps a discarded tool or a spy's lens. He made a mental note to remain vigilant. The game, it seemed, had more players than he had anticipated. He returned to the Daimler. The letters, a comforting weight in his coat. The chapter closed with Poirot gazing out at the river, its bend shimmering under the rising moon. He had found not the diary, but a path forward, a trail of words leading deeper into Agatha's secret. The shadow in Torquay, he murmured, a smile playing on his lips. Hercule Poirot shall find you, and the truth shall be revealed. Chapter 3. The shadow in Hercule Poirot stood on the platform of Torquay's railway station, the sea breeze tugging at the brim of his Homburg hat. The letters from the boathouse, safely tucked in his leather portfolio, weighed heavily on his mind, their cryptic words echoing like a challenge. Seek the shadow in Torquay. The morning was crisp, the sky a patchwork of gray clouds over the English Riviera, and the town bustled with the quiet charm that belied its secrets. Poirot's little gray cells were alight, piecing together the puzzle of Agatha Christie's hidden diary. The shadow was no mere metaphor. He deduced it was a person, a place, or perhaps an idea tied to Agatha's past in this, her birthplace. The literary club mentioned by Miss Clara Henshaw in Chapter 1 was his next target. A clandestine group where Agatha had once mingled with minds as sharp as her own. Poirot adjusted his coat and hailed a taxi, directing the driver to the Torquay Public Library. Henshaw, the silver-haired librarian, had proven a valuable ally, and he hoped she could shed light on the club's modern incarnation. The taxi wound through narrow streets lined with Victorian villas, their facades glowing in the pale sunlight. Poirot's thoughts turned to the letters, particularly the one signed by Agatha, hinting at a manuscript that could change everything. Her 1926 disappearance, a fleeting shadow in her public life, was emerging as the key to this mystery. The diary, he suspected, held the truth of those 11 days of truth someone was desperate to conceal, as evidenced by the empty compartment in Tavistock Manor and the watchful figure by the river at the library. Miss Henshaw greeted him with a mixture of warmth and wariness. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her eyes narrowing behind her spectacles, "you've returned sooner than I expected. Have you found what you sought at the manor?" "Not precisely," Mademoiselle Poirot replied, his tone smooth as velvet, "but I have uncovered a trail, one that leads me back to Torquay. You spoke of a literary club. Oui? One that Madame Christie frequented in her youth. I wish to know more its members, its purpose, its meeting place." Miss Henshaw hesitated, her fingers fidgeting with a stack of index cards. "The Order of the Quill," she said at last, her voice low. "That's what they called themselves. A small group of writers, scholars, and eccentrics who met in secret to discuss literature and ideas too bold for public ears. Agatha was a member in the 1920s, before her fame grew too bright. They still exist, though they're more discreet now. They meet at the old Grantham Hall on the edge of town every Thursday evening." Poirot's mustache twitched with satisfaction. "And tonight it is Thursday, n'est-ce pas? Tell me, mademoiselle, how might one gain entry to such a gathering?" "It's not easy," Miss Henshaw admitted, suspicious of outsiders. "But I know the current president, Mr. Reginald Thorne. I could arrange an introduction, if you're discreet." "Discretion, mademoiselle, is the very soul of Hercule Poirot," he said, bowing slightly. "I shall be most grateful." By evening, Poirot found himself at Grantham Hall, a Gothic edifice of weathered stone, its windows aglow with candlelight. Miss Henshaw had provided a letter of introduction, presenting Poirot as a Belgian literary scholar researching Agatha Christie's early influences. Mr. Thorne, a portly man with a penchant for tweed, greeted him with cautious hospitality. "We don't often welcome strangers," he said, eyeing Poirot's impeccable suit, "but Clara speaks highly of you. Come, join us." The meeting room was a cavern of oak-paneled walls, lined with bookshelves and lit by a chandelier that flickered like a dying star. A dozen members sat around a long table, their faces a mix of curiosity and reserve. Poirot's eyes scanned the group, noting their attire, their gestures, their whispers. One woman, Mrs. Eleanor Vance, caught his attentional, sharp-eyed widow, in her 50s, clutching a leather-bound notebook. Her gaze lingered on him, as though assessing a threat. The discussion began with literary trivia, but Poirot steered it toward Agatha Christie, probing for reactions. "Madame Christie's genius," he said, "lay in her ability to conceal the truth until the final page. But I wonder, did she ever conceal something greater work, perhaps never published?" A murmur rippled through the group. Mrs. Vance's pen froze mid-note. "There are rumors," she said carefully, "of a lost manuscript. Some say she wrote it during her absence in 1926, but it's a myth, surely." Poirot smiled, his eyes never leaving her. "Myths, madame, often hide truths. Have you heard of a diary, perhaps? One that speaks of this manuscript?" The room fell silent, the air thick with tension. Mr. Thorne cleared his throat. "Such talk is speculative, Mr. Poirot. Agatha was a private woman. If such a diary exists, it's long gone." But Poirot's instincts told him otherwise. Excused himself to examine a bookshelf where he noticed a volume of The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, slightly askew. Trusting his instinct for symmetry, he pulled it out and found a folded note tucked inside, written in a modern hand. "The Shadow moves to London. Harwood and Sons. The Vault." Before he could pocket it, a fire alarm shrieked and chaos erupted. Members scrambled for the exits, and Poirot, clutching the note, swept into the night. Outside, he caught a glimpse of Mrs. Vance hurrying away, her notebook under her arm. The alarm, he suspected, was no accident. Someone wished to disrupt his discovery. But the note was his prize, a clear lead to a London publisher. The chapter closed with Poirot standing under a street lamp, the note in his hand, his mind alight with the next step. The shadow in Torquay had revealed itself, if only in part, in London, beckoned with the promise of answers. Chapter 4. The coded note. Hercule Poirot sat in the quiet elegance of his London flat, the flickering gaslight casting shadows across the polished mahogany of his desk. The note from Grantham Hall, retrieved amidst the chaos of the fire alarm, in Torquay, lay before him, its words both a beacon and a taunt. The shadow moves to London. Harwood and Sons, the vault. The air was fragrant with his morning tisane, a delicate blend of chamomile and lavender, but Poirot's mind was far from .com. His little gray cells buzzed with the puzzle of Agatha Christie's hidden diary, a secret that seemed to dance just beyond his grasp. The note, written in a modern hand, suggested a trail deliberately laid, yet the fire alarm's surly no coincidence hinted at adversaries lurking in the shadows. Poirot's mustache twitched as he contemplated the challenge. He was no stranger. 2 games of intellect, and this one was proving worthy of his creator's genius. The journey from Torquay had been swift, the train's rhythmic clatter a soothing backdrop to his thoughts. The letters from the boathouse, penned by Agatha to the mysterious Miss E.L.S., had revealed a manuscript of profound significance, one tied to her 1926 disappearance. The note from the literary club pointed to Harwood and Sons, a venerable London publisher known for its discretion and its long association with Christie's works. A vault, Poirot mused, implied something precious, perhaps the diary itself or the manuscript it described. But first, the note required decoding, not in the literal sense, for its words were clear, but in the subtler language of intent. Who had left it, and why in so public a place as a book in the Order of the Quill's meeting room? The shadow, it seemed, was both guide and foe. Poirot summoned his valet, George, with a sharp ring of the bell. "George," he said, his voice crisp, "I require an appointment with Mr. Harwood, of Harwood and Sons. Present me as a literary scholar with an interest in Madame Christie's early works. Prepare my best to suit the one with the sapphire pen. One must make an impression." "Very good, sir," George replied, his face impassive, but his eyes betraying a flicker of curiosity. "Shall I arrange a car to the Strand?" "Oui, this afternoon. Time, it is of the essence." By noon, Poirot was ensconced in a black Bentley, gliding through London's bustling streets. The Strand was alive with the clamor of vendors and the clatter of typewriters from nearby offices, but Harwood and Sons stood as an oasis of quiet dignity, its Georgian facade untouched by the city's modernity. Poirot entered, his cane tapping lightly on the polished floor, and was greeted by a receptionist with a practiced smile. "Mr. Poirot, Mr. Harwood is expecting you." Mr. Archibald Harwood, a man in his late 70s, rose from behind a cluttered desk in an office lined with leather-bound tomes. His eyes, sharp despite his age, assessed Poirot with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Mr. Poirot," he said, extending a hand, "Clara Henshaw speaks highly of you. You're researching Agatha Christie, I understand." "Indeed," Monsieur Poirot replied, his accent polished to a sheen. "I seek a particular work, one perhaps entrusted to your care, a manuscript, or perhaps a diary, secured in a vault." Harwood's smile faltered, his fingers tightening on a fountain pen. "You're well informed," he said carefully. "Agatha was a valued client, but we keep many secrets here." "A vault, you say?" That's specific. Poirot leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. Monsieur, I am Hercule Poirot. Secrets are my materia. I have a reason to believe a document of great import penned by Madame Christie resides here. I ask only to see it, to honor her legacy. Harwood hesitated, then led Poirot to a basement level, where a steel vault door loomed behind a velvet curtain. This is where we keep our most sensitive manuscripts, he said, unlocking the door with a key from his pocket. Inside, shelves held boxes of papers, but Harwood directed Poirot to a locked case. This was Agatha's, he admitted. She left it with us in 1927 with strict instructions. I've never read it, but I know it's a fragment of something called The Vanishing Author. Poirot's heart quickened as Harwood opened the case, revealing a sheaf of yellowed pages. The title page bore Agatha's unmistakable script, but the text was incomplete, ending mid-sentence. Poirot scanned the fragment, his mind racing. It described a detective unlike any in her canuna. Woman, bold and unconventional, solving a crime that mirrored Agatha's own life. Was this the manuscript she feared would change everything? Before he could read further, Harwood produced a note found with the fragment. Stolen, but the truth endures. Seek the riddle in the churchyard. Poirot's triumph was tempered by suspicion. The manuscript's theft, like the diary's absence in the manor, suggested a pattern. He thanked Harwood, pocketing a photograph of the note, and left the publisher's office. As he stepped into the Strand's evening bustle, he sensed the presence of a figure in a dark coat, watching from across the street. The chapter closed with Poirot hailing a taxi, the riddle's promise of a churchyard echoing in his mind. His resolve unshaken by the shadow that followed. Chapter 5. The churchyard clue. Hercule Poirot sat in the back of a taxi, the London skyline receding as the vehicle wound through the countryside toward Devon once more. The riddle from Harwood and Sons, vault stolen, but the truth endures. Seek the riddle in the churchyard lay like a map in his mind, its words a compass pointing to the next piece of Agatha Christie's elusive secret. The evening air was crisp, the scent of rain mingling with the leather of the taxi's interior, and Poirot's little gray cells were alight with anticipation. The manuscript fragment, The Vanishing Author, had revealed a glimpse of a revolutionary work of female detective-defying convention, penned during Agatha's mysterious 1926 disappearance. Yet its theft, and the absence of the diary, suggested a determined effort to keep her secret buried. The churchyard, Poirot deduced, was no random choice. It was a place of significance, perhaps tied to Agatha's personal history. The journey from London to Devon was a study in contrasts, the city's clamor giving way to the quiet of rolling hills and hedgerows. Poirot had chosen a rural church near Tavistock Manor, guided by instinct and a map of the region's historic sites. St. Mary's Church, a medieval structure near the River Dart, seemed a likely candidate, its ancient graveyard known for its seclusion. The riddle's phrasing, the truth endures, suggested something hidden, preserved against time, and Poirot's mind turned to gravestones, those silent sentinels of secrets. He adjusted his Homburg hat, his gloved fingers tracing the edge of the photograph of the note, now safely tucked in his portfolio alongside the letters from the boathouse. Arriving at St. Mary's, Poirot dismissed the taxi and stood before the church, its stone tower weathered by centuries of wind and rain. The graveyard stretched behind it, a patchwork of moss-covered stones and yew trees, their branches casting long shadows in the fading light. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth, and the distant murmur of the Dart was a constant companion. Poirot's cane tapped lightly on the path as he entered the graveyard, his eyes scanning for anomalies. The riddle had been specific. He sought a gravestone whose inscription might echo its words. He moved methodically, reading epitaphs with the precision of a scholar. Many were faded, their letters worn by time, but one caught his eye modest. Stone near a crumbling wall, its inscription clear. Here lies Margaret Enderby, whose truth endures in eternity. 1875 to 1920. The phrase matched the riddle, and Poirot's pulse quickened. Margaret Enderby was unknown to him, but the coincidence was too striking. He knelt, examining the stone's base, and noted a slight irregularity in the soil, as though it had been disturbed and carefully replaced. With a glance to ensure he was alone, Poirot produced a small trowel from his coat, a tool he carried for such occasions, and began to dig. The earth yielded easily, revealing a tin box wrapped in oilcloth. His hands, steady despite the thrill of discovery, lifted it free. The box was locked, but its clasp was simple, and Poirot's deft fingers opened it to reveal a photograph and a folded note. The photograph showed Agatha Christie, her face pale but resolute, standing beside a man in his 40s, his features sharp and his eyes intense. The date scrawled on the back read December 1926. The note, in Agatha's handwriting, was brief. "Protect my truth. E. You know where it must go." Poirot's mind raced. The man in the photograph was unfamiliar, but the date placed him at the heart of Agatha's disappearance. See, Miss E.L.'s ally, or another player in this intricate game. The note suggested a mission, a secret entrusted to a confidant. Poirot slipped both items into his portfolio, his thoughts interrupted by a sudden creak from the church tower. He looked up, his senses alert, and saw a shadow shift, a gargoyle loosened from its perch, plummeting toward him with agility surprising. For his age, Poirot dove aside, the stone crashing into the earth where he had stood. His heart pounded, not with fear, but with certainty. Someone was watching, someone who wished to stop him. He scanned the graveyard, but the shadows revealed nothing. The incident was no accident, and Poirot's resolve hardened. The photograph and note were clues, but the danger was real as he left the churchyard. The moon rising over the Devon hills. Poirot clutched his portfolio, the weight of Agatha's secret grounding him. The chapter closed with him hailing a passing car. The man in the photograph, a new enigma, his identity, the key to the next step. "To London," he murmured, "where the truth of 1926 awaits." Chapter 6. The stranger's identity. Hercule Poirot sat in the plush comfort of his London flat, the photograph from the churchyard tin box resting on his desk like a silent challenge. The image of Agatha Christie, pale and resolute, standing beside a sharp-featured man in December 1926, had ignited his little gray cells. The accompanying note, "Protect my truth. E. You know where it must go," hinted at a confidant and a secret tied to Agatha's infamous disappearance. The near-fatal incident with the fallen gargoyle at St. Mary's Church confirmed that someone was watching, determined to thwart his quest for her hidden diary. Poirot's mustache twitched as he sipped his tisane. The lavender and chamomile of fleeting comfort against the storm of his thoughts. The man in the photograph was the key, and Poirot was resolved to uncover his identity. He summoned his old friend, Captain Arthur Hastings, whose loyalty and occasional naivety made him an ideal sounding board. Hastings arrived promptly, his face alight with curiosity. "Pro, old chap," he said, settling into an armchair. "You've got that look again. What's this about a photograph?" Poirot handed him the image, his voice precise. "Mon ami, this is Madame Christie. December 1926. The man beside her is unknown, but he's no stranger to her secret. I must know who he is and why he matters." Hastings studied the photograph, his brow furrowing. "Looks like a serious fellow. A doctor, perhaps. Those spectacles and that posture very professional." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Precisement, Hastings. A doctor, or perhaps a scholar. We shall begin with the records of Torquay, for the photograph was found in Devon, near her roots. Using Hastings' connections at the Home Office, Poirot accessed historical registries from the 1920s. After hours of cross-referencing, they identified the man as Dr. Edmund Blake, a psychologist who practiced in Torquay until his sudden disappearance in early 1927. His last known address was a cottage near the River Dart, not far from Tavistock Manor. The coincidence was striking, and Poirot's instincts hummed with certainty. This Dr. Blake, he murmured. He knew Madame Christie during her darkest hour. We must visit his cottage. The journey to Devon was swift, the train cutting through mist-shrouded hills. The cottage, a stone structure half claimed by ivy, stood in a secluded clearing, its windows dark and its garden overgrown. Poirot approached with caution, his cane tapping the uneven path. The door was ajar, a sign of neglect or intrusion. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with dust and the faint scent of old books. Poirot's eyes scanned the room, a desk littered with papers, a bookshelf sagging under medical tomes, a fireplace cold with ashdot. He began with the desk, sifting through faded letters and receipts. Among them were medical records, their edges brittle, detailing consultations from 1926. One entry, dated December 10th, caught his attention. Patient AC, female, 36, presents with acute distress, symptoms of emotional exhaustion, refuses to disclose cause, recommends rest and confidentiality. Poirot's heart quickened. "I see Agatha Christie," he whispered. The record hinted at a deeper connection, a trust between patient and doctor during her disappearance. A hidden drawer in the desk yielded a journal, its pages yellowed but intact. Blake's handwriting was meticulous, and one entry stood out. December 1926. AC speaks of a novel, a work that could change the genre forever. She fears its boldness, its challenge to convention. I urge her to preserve it, but she insists it must remain hidden. The diary, she says, holds the key. Poirot's pulse raced. The diary was real, and Blake had known of it. But where was it now? As he closed the journal, a creak from the floorboards snapped his attention. He turned, his cane raised, and saw a fresh footprint in the dust near the door too large for his own. Someone had been here, perhaps moments ago. Poirot stepped outside, his eyes scanning the trees. A flicker of movement, a shadow vanishing into the dusk. He noted the footprint's tread, a modern boot, and resolved to set a trap for this pursuer. Chapter 7. The Trap Springs. Hercule Poirot stood in the garden of Dr. Edmund Blake's abandoned cottage, the dusk settling over the Devon countryside like a velvet curtain. The fresh footprint in the dust of the cottage floor, the fleeting shadow in the trees, these were no mere coincidences. Someone was watching, tracking his every move in pursuit of Agatha Christie's hidden diary. The journal entry he had found, hinting at a revolutionary novel penned during her 1926 disappearance, had confirmed the diary's existence and its significance. Poirot's little gray cells hummed with purpose. The pursuer, this elusive shadow, must be unmasked, and Poirot, ever the master of order, resolved to set a trap. His mustache twitched as he clutched his portfolio, containing the photograph of Agatha with Dr. Blake and a cryptic note. "Protect my truth. You know where? It must go." The next step was clear, but it required cunning. Poirot returned to Torquay, checking into the Hotel Majestic under the alias Monsieur Dupont, a precaution against his unseen adversary. The hotel's opulent lounge, with its chandeliers and sea views, offered a temporary sanctuary. He telephoned Captain Hastings, his voice low but firm. "Enemy, I require your assistance. There is a shadow in my footsteps, and I intend to bring it into the light. Meet me tomorrow at the Café Maritime, noon. Bring your revolver, but be discreet." Hastings, ever eager, agreed, though his tone betrayed a mix of excitement and concern. "A trap, Poirot. You're sure it's safe?" "Safety, Hastings, is an illusion when one hunts the truth," Poirot replied. "As fear not, Hercule. Poirot is never unprepared." Café Maritime was a quaint establishment on Torquay's seafront, its tables spilling onto a terrace overlooking the harbor. Poirot chose it for its visibility, open enough to observe, private enough for confrontation. His plan was simple, yet elegant. Stage a meeting with a fictitious informant, loudly discussing a lead on the diary, and lured the pursuer into revealing themselves. He prepared a decoyous sealed envelope marked Diary Clues, containing blank paper, and placed it visibly on the table. Hastings, positioned at a nearby table, would watch for suspicious behavior at noon. The cafe buzzed with locals and tourists, the air fragrant with coffee and sea salt. Poirot, in disguise as DuPont, sipped a tisane in feigned conversation with an imaginary companion, his voice carrying just enough to be overheard. "The diary. It is close, monsieur. I have learned of a hiding place, a secret only Madame Christie knew." He tapped the envelope, scanning the crowd through the brim of his hat. Hastings signaled subtly a woman in a dark green coat, lingering near a newsstand, her eyes fixed on Poirot. She was young, perhaps 30, with sharp features and a nervous energy. Poirot continued his charade, rising to leave the envelope on the table as if by mistake. The woman hesitated, then approached, her hand reaching for the decoy. Poirot spun around, his cane blocking her path. "Mademoiselle," he said, his voice soft but unyielding, "you are interested in my papers. Perhaps you will join me for a conversation instead." The woman froze, her eyes wide with panic. Hastings moved to flank her, his hand near his coat pocket. I meant no harm," she stammered, her accent refined but trembling. "Please, let me go." "Not until you explain," Poirot said, gesturing to a chair. "Hercule Poirot does not chase shadows without purpose." "Are you? And why do you follow me?" Reluctantly, she said, introducing herself as Miss Evelyn Price, a literary historian and descendant of Agatha's literary agent, Charles Price. Her story tumbled out under Poirot's piercing gaze. "My grandfather worked with Agatha," she said. "He told my mother of a diary, a secret she entrusted to him. It's dangerous, Monsieur Poirot. Its contents could ruin her legacy. I've been following you to protect it." Poirot leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "And where is this diary, mademoiselle? You know, do you not?" Evelyn's hands twisted in her lap. I can't say my family swore to keep it hidden, okay? But I can tell you this. It's in a place where stories are born." Poirot's mind seized the phrase a clue, deliberate and precise. Agatha's stories were born at her writing desk, in her mind, in her home. He pressed Evelyn, his charm disarming her defenses, until she admitted the diary was likely in Agatha's former home, now a museum. The chapter closed with Poirot releasing Evelyn, her clue a beacon to the next step, his trap a success. As he left the cafe, the sea sparkling under the afternoon sun, he murmured, "The writing desk, it calls. Hercule Poirot shall answer." Chapter 8. The writing desk. Hercule Poirot stood on the steps of the Hotel Majestic in Torquay, the sea breeze carrying the tang of salt and the promise of revelation. The words of Miss Evelyn Price, unmasked as his pursuer in the Café Maritime, echoed in his mind. The diary is in a place where stories are born. His little gray cells, ever restless, had seized upon the clue with certainty. For Agatha Christie, stories were born at her writing desk, the crucible of her genius. Her former home in Torquay, now a museum dedicated to her legacy, was the logical destination. It's a photograph of Agatha with Dr. Edmund Blake, the journal hinting at a revolutionary novel, and the cryptic notes from the churchyard in Harwood. and Sons all pointed to a secret tied to her 1926 disappearance. Poirot's mustache twitched as he adjusted his Homburg hat, his resolve unshaken by the shadow that had nearly ended his quest with a falling gargoyle. The diary was close, and he would find it. He hailed a taxi, directing the driver to the Agatha Christie Museum, a Georgian villa on the outskirts of Torquay. The journey was brief, the road winding through streets lined with quaint shops and blooming hydrangeas. But Poirot's thoughts were elsewhere. Felon's confession had been a breakthrough, yet her fear of the diary's contents suggested a truth that could unsettle the literary world. Was it the novel described in Blake's journal, a work to change the genre forever, or something more personal, a revelation from those 11 lost days in 1926? The taxi pulled up to the museum, its white facade gleaming under the midday. Son and Poirot stepped out, his cane tapping rhythmically on the cobblestones. The museum was a shrine to Agatha's legacy, its rooms filled with first editions, handwritten drafts, and photographs of her life. Poirot presented himself as a Belgian scholar, his charm disarming the curator. Beatrice Lang, a prim woman in her 50s with a passion for Christie's works. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her eyes bright with curiosity. "It's an honor. Are you here to study Agatha's manuscripts?" "Precisement," Mademoiselle Poirot replied, his accent polished. "I am particularly interested in her writing desk. May I examine it?" Lang hesitated, her fingers adjusting her glasses. "The desk is a centerpiece of our collection, but it's fragile. We don't allow handling." Poirot's smile was gentle but unyielding. "Mademoiselle, I seek only to understand the mind of Madame Christie. A brief inspection with utmost care is all I ask." Reluctantly, she led him to a study on the second floor, where the desk stood a sturdy oak piece, its surface worn but polished, adorned with an inkwell and a faded blotter. Poirot's eyes scanned its contours, noting a faint asymmetry in the drawer alignment. "The desk, it has secrets," he murmured, his gloved fingers tracing the wood. Miss Lang watched nervously as he pressed gently, discovering a false bottom in the central drawer. With a soft click, it opened, revealing a brass key and a folded map of London, its edges marked with literary landmarks. The map bore a single annotation in Agatha's hand, Charing Cross. "The bookshop where truths are traded." Poirot's heart quickened. The key, small and ornate, suggested a lockbox or safe, and the map pointed to a specific bookshop in London. He pocketed both, thanking Miss Lang with a bow. As he left the museum, a flicker of movement caught his age figure in a dark coat, lingering across the street. The shadow was back, but Poirot, ever cautious, slipped into a waiting taxi, the key and map a triumph in his quest. Chapter 9. The Lost Sequel. Hark. Poirot sat in the back of a London taxi. The map from Agatha Christie's writing desk spread across his knees, its delicate lines tracing the literary heart of the city. The annotation in her unmistakable hand, Charing Cross, the bookshop where truths are traded, was a beacon guiding him to the next piece of her hidden diary's puzzle. The brass key, also found in the desk, rested in his pocket, its weight a promise of secrets yet to be unlocked. The morning light filtered through the taxi's windows, casting fleeting shadows across his face, but Poirot's little gray cells were alight with purpose. The clues from Tavistock Manor, the boathouse, the literary club, the churchyard, Dr. Blake's cottage, and Evelyn Price's confession all converged on this moment. Agatha's 1926 disappearance, the revolutionary novel hinted at in Blake's journal, and the manuscript fragment, the vanishing author, suggested a truth that could reshape her legacy. Yet the shadow that had trailed him nearly fatal in the churchyard reminded him that danger was ever present. The taxi pulled up to Charing Cross Road, its bustling artery of bookshops and theaters, the air thick with the scent of ink and dust. Poirot's destination was clear: Foyle's bookshop, literary institution known for its rare editions and whispered secrets. Its facade loomed, a labyrinth of shelves visible through tall windows, and Poirot felt a thrill akin to entering a crime scene. He stepped out, his cane tapping the pavement, and adjusted his Homburg hat, his eyes scanning for the shadow that had dogged his steps. The street was alive with readers and vendors, but no one stood out yet. Inside, Foyle's was a cathedral of books, its aisles stretching into dim corners, the air heavy with the musty aroma of aged paper. Poirot approached the rare books section, where a clerk, Mr. Percy Hammond, greeted him with a nod. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, recognizing the name from a prior inquiry. "You're after something special, I presume." "Seismit," Poirot replied, his accent polished. "A rare edition of Madame Christie's The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. I have reason to believe it holds annotations of interest." Hammond's eyes flickered with curiosity. "We have such an edition, but it's in our locked case. It came from a private collection, with notes in what might be Agatha's hand. Very valuable." Poirot's heart quickened. He followed Hammond to a glass case in a secluded alcove, where the book lay, a first edition, its cover pristine despite its age. The clerk unlocked the case, and Poirot, with gloved hands, opened the book. Marginalia in Agatha's script filled, the pages cryptic notes about a sequel that challenged narrative conventions, with a detective unlike any other. One note stood out: "The sequel lives where the auction bids." Poirot's mind raced. This was no myth, but a lead to a lost work, perhaps tied to the diary itself. Before he could inquire further, a commotion erupted. A shelf collapsed in a nearby aisles, scattering books. Poirot's instincts flared. It was a distraction. He slipped the book into his portfolio, thanking Hammond, and hurried toward the exit. Outside, he spotted a figure in a dark coat, the same shadow from the museum, vanishing into the crowd. Poirot hailed a taxi. The book, a triumph. The auction clue, a new path. The chapter closed with asterisk. Chapter 10. The Auction's Aftermath. Poirot sat in his London flat, the rare edition of The Murder of Roger Ackroyd open on his desk, its marginalia a map to the next piece of Agatha Christie's hidden diary. The note in Agatha's hand, the sequel lives, where the auction bids had ignited his little gray cells, pointing to a private literary auction where her lost work might surface. The brass key from her writing desk, still unused, rested in his pocket, a silent promise of secrets yet to be unlocked. The morning light streamed through the window, casting a golden glow across the room, but Poirot's mind was elsewhere, tracing the threads of the mystery: the anonymous letter, the boathouse letters, the churchyard photograph, Dr. Blake's journal, Evelyn Price's confession, and the manuscript fragment, The Vanishing Author. Each clue suggested a revolutionary novel tied to Agatha's 1926 disappearance, a truth someone was desperate to suppress, as evidenced by the shadow trailing him through Torquay in London. Poirot's mustache twitched as he sipped his tisane, his resolve unshaken. The auction was his next battlefield. He would be ready. He summoned Captain Hastings, whose arrival brought a familiar burst of enthusiasm. "Poirot, an auction, Hastings said, settling into an armchair. "Sounds like a jolly affair, but I suppose it's fraught with danger." "Seismit, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice crisp. "The sequel is no myth, and the auction is where it surfaces. But we must be discreet. I shall attend as a collector, and you, my eyes in the crowd." Hastings grinned, patting his coat pocket. "I'll keep my revolver handy, just in case." The auction was held at the Clarendon Club, a discreet venue in Mayfair known for its literary clientele. Poirot, under the pseudonym Monsieur Dupont, arrived in a tailored suit, his sapphire pen gleaming. The club's interior was opulent marble floors, crystal chandeliers, shelves lined with rare books. The auction room buzzed with collectors, their whispers thick with anticipation. Poirot's eyes scanned the crowd, noting a tall man in a gray suit, his face half hidden by a catalog. Watching him intently, the auctioneer, Mr. Lionel Grayson, announced the lot, a single page from an unpublished Christie manuscript, rumored to be a sequel to the murder of Roger Ackroyd. Poirot's heart quickened as he bid, his voice steady but his mind racing. The page described a detective woman, bold and unconventional, solving a crime that mirrored Agatha's own life. The bidding was fierce, but Poirot, using a generous sum from a discreet fund, secured the page. As he collected it, the man in the gray suit approached, his voice low. "You're meddling in dangerous matters, monsieur." Poirot's cane tapped the floor. "Hercule Poirot does not meddle, monsieur. He uncovers truth." The man retreated, but not before slipping a note into Poirot's pocket. "The diary is in a London bank. Lord Ashburn knows more." Poirot escaped the club, the page in his portfolio, but a thug accosted him in an alley, demanding the page. Using his wit and cane, Poirot disarmed the thug and fled, entrusting the page to Hastings for safekeeping. The chapter closed with Poirot in a taxi, the note about Lord Ashburn, a new lead, the shadow closer, but the truth within reach. Chapter 11. The bank vault. Hercule Poirot sat in his London flat, the note from the Clarendon Club auction clutched in his gloved hand. The diary is in a London bank. Lord Ashburn knows more. The page from Agatha Christie's lost sequel, acquired amidst the auction's fervor, lay on his desk. Its description of a bold female detective, a tantalizing clue to the diary's contents. The brass key from Agatha's writing desk, still unused, weighed heavily in his pocket, its purpose tantalizingly close. The morning light filtered through the drapes, casting a golden glow across the room, but Poirot's little gray cells were ablaze, weaving together the threads of the mystery: the anonymous letter from Torquay, the boathouse letters, the churchyard photograph, Dr. Blake's journal, Evelyn Price's confession, the manuscript fragment, the vanishing author, and the auctions page. Each pointed to a secret tied to Agatha's 1926 disappearance. Truth, someone, perhaps the shadow trailing him, was desperate to suppress. Poirot's mustache twitched as he sipped his tisane, his resolve unshaken by the thug's attack. In the Mayfair alley, the bank and Lord Ashburn were his next targets, and he would unravel their secrets with precision. He summoned Captain Hastings. His arrival brought a familiar burst of enthusiasm. "Poirot, a bank vault," Hastings said, settling into an armchair. "Sounds like we're close to the prize, but I suppose there's trouble brewing." "Seismond, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice crisp. "The diary is within reach, but Lord Ashburn is a man of influence. We must tread carefully. I shall visit his estate, and you will accompany me as my associate." Hastings patted his coat pocket. "Revolver's ready, old chap. Let's find this diary." Poirot's research revealed Lord Ashburn as a reclusive aristocrat with a passion for rare manuscripts, his estate in Hampstead a fortress of secrets. The bank, identified as Barclay's Pall Mall branch, was known for its high security vaults. Poirot, posing as a literary scholar, secured an invitation to Ashburn's estate through a contact at the British Library. The journey to Hampstead was tense, the city's bustle giving way to rolling hills and ancient oaks. The estate loomed, its Gothic towers shrouded in mist, and Poirot's senses sharpened as he noted a groundskeeper watching from the shadows. Lord Ashburn, a gaunt man with piercing eyes, greeted Poirot with cautious hospitality. "Mr. Poirot," he said, "your reputation precedes you. You seek information about Agatha Christie's papers." "Oui, milord," Poirot replied, his accent polished. "I have reason to believe you know of a diary secured in a bank vault." Ashburn's face tightened, but he led Poirot to a library filled with rare books. After probing questions, he admitted to safeguarding a key for Agatha in 1927, now in Barclay's vault. Poirot, using the brass key, visited the bank, where he found a coded letter in Agatha's hand. "The diary rests where my heart found peace." The chapter closed with Poirot deciphering the code, pointing to Greenway House, pursued by the shadow, but triumphant. Asterisk. Chapter 12. Evelyn's confession. Hercule Poirot sat in the dimly lit parlor of his temporary lodgings in Torquay. The diary of Agatha Christie resting on the mahogany table before him. Its leather cover, worn yet elegant, seemed to pulse with the weight of secrets it contained. The room was quiet, save for the faint ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner, its pendulum marking the passage of time as Poirot's mind churned with the revelations he had uncovered. The diary had confirmed what he had begun to suspect during her mysterious disappearance in December 1926. Agatha Christie had penned a novel, The Unseen Truth, a work so radical, so daring, that she had chosen to hide it from the world. It was a story that challenged the conventions of the detective genre, introduced a female protagonist who defied societal norms, and, perhaps most shockingly, questioned the very identity Agatha had crafted as the queen of crime fiction. Poirot's fingers traced the edge of the diary as he considered his next move. The entries had mentioned a confidant, referred to only as E, who had helped Agatha conceal her work. Poirot's instincts, honed by years of unraveling human motives, pointed to Evelyn Price, the woman who had shadowed him, who had confessed to being a descendant of Agatha's literary agent, and who had hinted at knowing more than she let on. Evelyn was the key to finding the unseen truth, and Poirot knew he had to confront her. But he also knew that such a confrontation required Vanessa Velen was no ordinary adversary. She was driven by a fierce loyalty to Agatha's legacy, a loyalty that bordered on obsession. To extract the truth, Poirot would need to appeal to her sense of duty while disarming her defenses. He glanced at the clock. It was nearing dusk, the sky outside painted in hues of amber and violet. Evelyn had agreed to meet him here at this modest guest house on the outskirts of Torquay, far from prying eyes. Poirot had chosen the location deliberately neutral ground, away from the literary haunts of London or the Christie family's old stomping grounds in Devon. He wanted Evelyn to feel safe, yet he needed her to understand that he would not leave without answers. As he waited, Poirot reviewed the diary's final entry, written in Agatha's precise, flowing script. December 10th, 1926. The manuscript is complete, but I cannot bear to see it in the world's hands. It is too much, too raw, too true. E has promised to guard it, to keep it where stories are born, where it will remain unseen until the time is right. I trust her, as I trust no one else, but oh, how I fear the day it is found. It could undo everything, or it could set me free. The words stirred something in Poirot. Agatha's fear was palpable, but so was her hope. She had created something extraordinary, something she believed in, yet she had chosen to bury it. Why? Was it merely the fear of scandal, or was there something deeper, something tied to her own identity as a writer and a woman? Poirot's little gray cells buzzed with possibilities, but he needed the manuscript itself to confirm his theories. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Poirot adjusted his tie, smoothed his mustache, and called out, "Entrez, si vous plaît." The door creaked open, and Evelyn Price stepped inside. She was a woman of middle age, her auburn hair pulled back in a severe bun, her eyes sharp and wary. She wore a tailored coat, its deep green fabric contrasting with the pale tension in her face. In her hand, she clutched a small leather satchel, its edges frayed from years of use. Poirot noted the way her fingers tightened around it, as if It held something precious, so dangerous. Monsieur Poirot, she said, her voice steady but laced with caution. You sent for me. I assume you've read the diary. Poirot gestured to a chair opposite him. Please, Mademoiselle Price, do sit. I have indeed read the diary, and it has raised many questions. Questions that I believe only you can answer. Evelyn hesitated, then lowered herself into the chair, her posture rigid. I told you before, I'm only protecting Agatha's legacy. Whatever you found, it's best left alone. Poirot's eyes gleamed with that familiar spark of determination. Mademoiselle, I am Hercule Poirot. I do not leave puzzles unsolved, nor do I allow truths to remain buried when they cry out to be heard. The diary speaks of a manuscript, the unseen truth, and of a confidant known as E. I believe you are connected to this E, perhaps her granddaughter. We? Evelyn's lips pressed into a thin line, but she did not deny it. Poirot leaned forward, his voice gentle yet probing. You have guarded this secret for a long time, have you not? But the time for guarding is over. Tell me, where is the manuscript? For a moment, silence hung between them, heavy as the fog that clung to Torquay's cliffs. Then Evelyn's shoulders slumped, and she let out a long, weary sigh. You're right, she said at last. I am Evelyn, granddaughter of Eleanor Price, Agatha's closest confidant during those dark days of 1926. My grandmother swore to protect Agatha's secret. That duty passed to me. But you've come too far, Monsieur Poirot. Can't stop you now. Poirot nodded, encouraging her to continue. Then tell me, mademoiselle, where is the unseen truth? Evelyn's eyes met his, and in them Poirot saw a flicker of resignation. It's in the Lake District, she said. A cottage in Ambleside, one Agatha visited during her disappearance. She called it her sanctuary, a place where she could write without the world's judgment. The manuscript is hidden there in a locked chest beneath the floorboards of her study. Poirot's heart quickened, but he kept his expression calm. And why has it remained hidden? What is so dangerous about this manuscript that you and your grandmother have guarded it so fiercely? Evelyn's gaze drifted to the window, where the last light of day was fading. It's not just a story, Monsieur Poirot. It's a manifesto. The unseen truth is unlike anything Agatha ever wrote. It's a crime novel, yes, but it's detective. It's a woman who doesn't just solve crimes, but challenges the very world that confines her. Agatha poured her soul into it, her frustrations, her fears, her dreams. She wrote it during those 11 days she vanished, when she was grappling with her failing marriage, her public persona, and her own identity. To publish it in 1926 would have been career suicide. The world wasn't ready for a woman like that, not in fiction, and certainly not in life. Poirot leaned back, his mind racing. A female detective, bold and unconventional, crafted at a time when Agatha herself was wrestling with her place in the world. It was a revelation that reshaped his understanding of his creator. And now, he asked, is the world ready now? Evelyn's eyes hardened. That's not for me to decide. My grandmother made a promise, and I've kept it. But you're different. You're not bound by promises. You're Agatha's creation, her greatest detective. If anyone can decide what to do with the unseen truth, it's you. Poirot considered her words. The responsibility was immense, but so was the opportunity. To uncover the unseen truth was to honor Agatha's courage, to bring to light a work that could redefine her legacy. But it also risked exposing her vulnerabilities, inviting scrutiny into a life she had carefully guarded. He needed to see the manuscript for himself, to understand its power before making such a choice. Then we must go to the Lake District, Poirot said decisively. You will take me to this cottage, Mademoiselle Price. Together, we will find the unseen truth. Evelyn hesitated, then nodded. Very well, but we must be careful. There are others who know about the manuscript, collectors, scholars, even criminals who would do anything to possess it. Lord Ashburn, for one. He's been after it for years. Poirot's mustache twitched. Lord Ashburn, he is a formidable opponent, but he does not reckon with Hercule Poirot. We shall outwit him, mademoiselle. Now, let us make haste. The journey to the Lake District was a blur of trains and winding roads. The English countryside unfolding in a tapestry of green hills and shimmering lakes. Poirot, dressed in his immaculate suit despite the rural setting, sat opposite Evelyn in a rattling carriage, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of pursuit. He had not forgotten the thug at the auction, nor the fallen gargoyle at the churchyard. As one likely Lord Ashburn's men was, watching his every move. Evelyn, too, was on edge, her satchel clutched tightly to her chest. "We're nearly there," she said as the carriage slowed near Ambleside, a quaint village nestled among the fells. The cottage is secluded, hidden by a copse of trees. Agatha chose it for its privacy. Poirot nodded, his mind already mapping the terrain and the chest. "Mademoiselle, is it well hidden?" Very, Evelyn replied. "Only someone with Agatha's mind or yours could find it." The carriage stopped at the edge of a narrow lane, and Poirot and Evelyn disembarked, their footsteps crunching on the gravel path. The cottage came into view, a modest stone building with ivy creeping up its walls. Its windows were dark, its chimney cold. But there was an air of quiet significance about it, as if it held secrets within its walls. Evelyn led the way, unlocking the front door with a key from her satchel. Inside, the air was musty, the furniture draped in dust sheets. Poirot's eyes swept the room, noting the faded wallpaper, the creaking floorboards, the faint scent of old books. "The study," he said. "Take me there." Evelyn guided him to a small room at the back of the cottage, where a simple oak desk stood against a window overlooking the lake. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books and papers, many bearing Agatha's handwriting. Poirot's heart quickened. This was indeed a place where stories are born. "The chest is beneath the floor," Evelyn said, kneeling beside the desk. She pried up a loose floorboard, revealing a small, locked chest, its surface etched with intricate carvings. "This is it." Poirot examined the lock, a complex mechanism that required both a key and a combination. "The key from the writing desk," he murmured, producing the small brass key he had found in Agatha's former home. He inserted it into the lock, then studied the combination dials. Agatha was fond of ciphers, was she not? Let us think. The diary mentioned her disappearance 11 days, perhaps. He turned the dials to 1126, representing December 1926. The lock clicked, and the chest opened with a soft creak. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was a thick manuscript, its pages yellowed but intact. The title, written in Agatha's hand, read, "The Unseen Truth." Poirot lifted the manuscript reverently, his fingers trembling slightly. "Mon Dieu," he whispered, "it exists." Evelyn watched him, her expression a mix of awe and apprehension. "What will you do with it, Monsieur Poirot?" Poirot did not answer immediately. He opened the manuscript, his eyes scanning the first page. The prose was unmistakably Agatha's, crisp, evocative, yet laced with a boldness he had not encountered in her published works. Con, the protagonist, a woman named Eliza Harcourt, was no mere detective. She was a force of nature, a widow who solved crimes not with Poirot's meticulous logic, nor Marple's quiet observation, but with a fierce intellect and a defiance of the patriarchal world around her. The opening scene, set in a bustling London of the 1920s, described Eliza confronting a corrupt magistrate, her wit and courage dismantling his authority in a way that would have shocked Agatha's readers at the time. "This is extraordinary," Poirot said at last. "It is not merely a novel. It is a revolution." Evelyn nodded. "That's why she hid it. She knew it could ruin her." The public adored her for her puzzles, her tidy resolutions. This was too much, too real. Poirot closed the manuscript, his mind racing. He could see now why Agatha had feared its publication, but he could also see its potential. The Unseen Truth was a masterpiece, a work that could redefine the detective genre, elevate Agatha's legacy beyond the cozy mysteries for which she was known. But to publish it now, decades after her death, would invite controversy, scrutiny, perhaps even accusations of betrayal. And yet, to keep it hidden was to deny Agatha's courage, her willingness to take risks in her art. "We must protect it," Poirot said, his voice firm, "but we must also ensure it is not lost. I will take it to a publisher I trust, one who will honor Agatha's vision. But first, we must evade those who seek it." Evelyn's eyes widened. "You think Ashburn's men are close?" Poirot's mustache twitched. "I am certain of it, mademoiselle. They have followed us this far. But fear not, Hercule Poirot is not so easily outdone." As night fell, Poirot and Evelyn devised a plan. They would leave the cottage under cover of darkness, taking a circuitous route to London to throw off any pursuers. Poirot tucked the manuscript into a false compartment in his suitcase. It's a precaution he had learned from years of dealing with thieves and spies. Evelyn, meanwhile, gathered a few of Agatha's personal effects from the cottage letters, sketches, a small locket items that might corroborate the manuscript's authenticity. As they stepped outside, the night air was cool and sharp, the stars hidden by a blanket of clouds. Poirot's senses were on high alert, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. They had not gone far when he heard a faint rustle in the trees, the snap of a twig. He held up a hand, signaling Evelyn to stop. "Someone is there," he whispered. "Stay close." Evelyn nodded, her face pale but resolute. Poirot crept forward, his cane gripped tightly, ready to use it as a weapon if necessary. The rustling grew louder, and then, from the darkness, a figure emerged. Tall man in a dark coat, his face obscured by a scarf. In his hand gleamed a knife. "Monsieur Poirot," the man said, his voice low and menacing. "Hand over the manuscript, and no one gets hurt." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "You are one of Lord Ashburn's men, I presume. You underestimate Hercule Poirot if you think he will surrender so easily." The man lunged, but Poirot was ready. With a swift movement, he sidestepped, using his cane to trip the assailant. The man stumbled, and Evelyn, quick as a flash, grabbed a nearby branch and struck him across the knees. He fell with a cry, dropping the knife. "Quickly, mademoiselle," Poirot shouted, grabbing her arm. They ran, the manuscript secure in Poirot's suitcase, as the man's curses echoed behind him. They reached the village, where a hired car awaited and sped off into the night, leaving their pursuer behind. The journey to London was tense, but uneventful. Poirot and Evelyn arrived at dawn, checking into a discreet hotel near Charing Cross. There, Poirot contacted a trusted publisher, Mr. Reginald Thorne, a man known for his integrity and his reverence for literary history. Thorne agreed to meet them at his office, a small but elegant space filled with books and manuscripts. Poirot presented the manuscript, explaining its origins and significance. Thorne's eyes widened as he read the first few pages, his fingers tracing the words with a reverence that matched Poirot's own. "This is astonishing," he said. "It could change how we see Agatha Christie, but it's a risk. There will be those who say it tarnishes her legacy, who claim it's too bold, too feminist for her time." Poirot nodded. "That is precisely why it must be published, Monsieur Thorne." Agatha hid it out of fear, but she also hoped it would one day be read. We must honor that hope. Thorne agreed to publish The Unseen Truth under strict conditions. It would be released posthumously, with a foreword explaining its context and significance. Poirot insisted on anonymity for himself and Evelyn, not wishing to draw attention to their roles in its discovery. Thorne promised to safeguard the manuscript, storing it in a secure vault until the time was right. As Poirot and Evelyn left the publisher's office, the weight of their mission seemed to lift. They had done what Agatha could not. They had brought her hidden truth into the light, or at least set it on the path to be seen. But Poirot knew their work was not yet done. Lord Ashburn's men were still out there, and the manuscript's existence would soon become known. He would need to remain vigilant. Mademoiselle Price said, as they walked along the bustling streets of London, "You have done your grandmother proud, and Agatha, I believe, would be proud of us both." Evelyn smiled, a rare softness in her expression. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. I never thought I'd trust anyone with this secret, but you're different." Poirot inclined his head, his mustache curving in a modest smile. "It is the little gray cells, mademoiselle. They do not fail me." They parted ways. Poirot felt a sense of fulfillment, but also a lingering question. What would the world make of the unseen truth? Would it embrace Agatha's boldness, or would it recoil from her truth? Only time would tell. For now, he had solved the puzzle, uncovered the secret, and ensured that Agatha's legacy would endure in a new, daring light. He returned to his flat, the diary and manuscript safe, his mind already turning to the next challenge. But for tonight, Hercule Poirot allowed himself a moment of rest, a cup of tisane, and the satisfaction of a case well closed. Poirot's mustache twitched. Lord Ashburn is a collector, a man driven by greed, not principle. He does not frighten Hercule Poirot. We will outwit him, as we have before. But first, we must decide the manuscript's fate. Evelyn was silent for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, let's take it to Mr. Thorne, but we must be careful. No one can know it's in our possession, not yet." Poirot agreed, and they made arrangements to meet Thorne that afternoon. But as they left the cafe, Poirot's instincts prickled. A man in a dark overcoat lingered across the street, his hat pulled low. Poirot recognized the type of hired thug, likely in Ashburn's employ. He guided Evelyn down a side alley, his pace brisk but calm. "We are followed," he murmured. "Stay close, mademoiselle." Evelyn's face paled, but she nodded, matching his stride. They wove through London's labyrinthine streets, ducking into bookshops and tea rooms to throw off their pursuer. Poirot's mind worked furiously, calculating routes and distractions. At last, they reached Thorne's office, a nondescript building tucked among the literary haunts of Charing Cross. Thorne greeted them warmly, his eyes lighting up at the sight of the manuscript. "I've been thinking about it since you left," he said. "This could be the literary event of the century, but we must proceed with caution. The press, the scholars, the collectors, they'll all want a piece of it." Poirot outlined their plan, a posthumous publication with a foreword contextualizing the novel's significance. Thorne suggested a limited release, perhaps through a trusted academic press, to gauge public reaction before a wider distribution. Evelyn, though hesitant, agreed, stipulating that her family's role remain anonymous as they finalized details. Poirot's thoughts turned to Lord Ashburn. The collector's men were closing in, and the manuscript's safety was paramount. He proposed a decoy, false manuscript planted to mislead Ashburn's thugs. Thorne, intrigued by the subterfuge, offered to create a convincing facsimile, complete with forged handwriting. The plan was set in motion that evening. Poirot and Evelyn returned to the hotel, where he crafted a trap. Keela slipped to a known gossip in literary circles. Keela, bookseller with loose lips, that he had left the manuscript in a rented locker at King's Cross Station. The locker, in truth, contained the decoy, a meticulously crafted fake that Thorne had delivered within hours. Poirot ensured the real manuscript remained hidden in his flat, secured in a locked safe, disguised as a bookend. At midnight, Poirot and Evelyn watched from a shadowed alcove across from the station. Sure enough, two men approached the locker, their movements furtive. One, the thug from the auction, forced the lock open, retrieving the decoy with a triumphant grin. As they fled into the night, Poirot allowed himself a small smile. "They will report to Lord Ashburn," he said, "and he will believe he has one. This buys us time, mademoiselle." Evelyn exhaled, relief softening her features. "You're a genius, Monsieur Poirot." Non, Poirot said modestly. "It is merely the application of order and method." With Ashburn's men distracted, Poirot and Evelyn returned to Thorne's office the next day to finalize the publication plan. The manuscript was entrusted to a secure vault, accessible only by Thorne and his most trusted associate. Poirot insisted on strict conditions: no advance publicity, no leaks to the press. The release would be a surprise, announced only when the book was ready to ship. As they left the office, Poirot felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The manuscript was safe, its future assured, but the question of its impact lingered. Would the world embrace the unseen truth, or would it recoil from its boldness? Poirot could not predict the outcome, but he felt a deep satisfaction in knowing he had honored Agatha's vision. He turned to Evelyn, who walked beside him, her satchel now lighter, as if unburdened by the secret she had carried for so long. "Mademoiselle," he said, "you have done your grandmother proud, and Agatha, I believe, would thank you for your courage." Evelyn smiled, a rare warmth in her eyes. "And you, Monsieur Poirot, without you, this would have remained a secret forever." They parted ways at the corner of Charing Cross Road, Evelyn to her quiet life, Poirot to his flat. As he walked, the city's energy seemed to pulse with possibility. The unseen truth would soon be revealed, and with it, a new chapter in Agatha Christie's legacy. Poirot's little gray cells, for once, were at peace, content with the knowledge that he had solved not just a mystery, but a puzzle of the heart. He returned home, poured a tisane, and settled into his armchair, the manuscript's power still echoing in his mind. The case was not yet closed. Ashburn's men might return. The world's reaction was uncertain, but for now, Hercule Poirot allowed himself a moment of triumph. The truth, as Eliza Harcourt might say, had been uncovered. Chapter 13. The manuscript's power. Hercule Poirot sat in the quiet seclusion of his London flat. The manuscript of the unseen truth spread before him on a polished mahogany table. The pages, yellowed with age, yet vibrant with Agatha Christie's unmistakable prose, seemed to hum with a life of their own. The room was bathed in the soft glow of a single lamp, casting long shadows across the walls adorned with Poirot's collection of Art Deco prints. Outside, the city buzzed with its usual cacophony, but within these walls, time seemed to pause, as if honoring the gravity of the discovery Poirot held in his hands. He had returned from the Lake District with Evelyn Price, the manuscript secured in a hidden compartment of his suitcase, a precaution born of years navigating the treachery of human motives. Lord Ashburn's men, those shadowy figures who had dogged his steps, remained a threat, their greed for Agatha's unpublished work undeterred by his escape from Ambleside. Yet Poirot's mind was not on danger now. It was on the words before him, words that revealed a side of his creator he had never fully grasped. The unseen truth was no mere novelette, was a manifesto. Bold reimagining of the detective genre. In a deeply personal reflection of Agatha's inner turmoil during her 1926 disappearance. Poirot adjusted his pince-nez and began to read, his fingers turning the pages with the reverence one might reserve for a sacred text. The protagonist, Eliza Harcourt, leapt from the page with a vitality that both fascinated and unsettled him. Kia, unlike Poirot, with his meticulous logic, or Miss Marple, with her quiet intuition, Eliza was a force of defiance. A widow in her 30s, she navigated the gritty underbelly of 1920s London, solving crimes not through traditional deduction, but through a fierce intellect and an unapologetic rejection of societal constraints. In one passage, Eliza confronted a corrupt police inspector. Her words, sharp as a blade. "You think me a mere woman, Inspector, fit only for tea parties and needlework. But I see what you hide the ledger of bribes, the whispered deals in smoky rooms. I will uncover your truth, and no man's title will shield you from it." Poirot paused, his mustache twitching with admiration. This was not the Agatha Christie the world knew, the weaver of tidy puzzles and satisfying resolutions. This was a woman who had poured her frustrations, her anger, her dreams into a character who defied the very world that sought to confine her. The novel's themes, gender, power, identity, were revolutionary for 1926, and even now, in 2025. They carried a weight that could reshape how the world viewed Agatha's legacy. But with that power came a dilemma. Poirot leaned back in his chair, his little gray cells buzzing. To publish the unseen truth would be to unveil a masterpiece, a work that could elevate Agatha's reputation as a literary pioneer. Yet it would also invite scrutiny, perhaps even scandal. The public adored her for her cozy mysteries, her predictable worlds where order was restored. This novel, with its raw emotion and provocative themes, might be seen as a betrayal of that image. And then there was the risk of Lord Ashburn, whose obsession with the manuscript could turn dangerous if its existence became public. Poirot sipped his tisane, chamomile soothing his nerves as he weighed his options. He could honor Agatha's wish for secrecy, entrusting the manuscript to a vault where it would remain unseen, perhaps for another century. Or he could bring it into the light, fulfilling what he believed was her deeper desire to be understood, to be seen as more than the queen of crime. The diary's final entry echoed in his mind. "It could undo everything, or it could set me free." The decision was not his alone, however. Evelyn Price, as the granddaughter of Agatha's confidant, had a stake in this choice. And Mr. Reginald Thorne, the publisher Poirot had entrusted with the manuscript's safekeeping, would need to be consulted. Poirot resolved to meet with them both, but first he needed to understand the full scope of the unseen truth. He returned to the manuscript. Diving deeper into its pages, the story unfolded with a complexity that rivaled Agatha's finest works. Eliza Harcourt's investigation centered on the murder of a prominent suffragette, a case that exposed a web of corruption linking politicians, industrialists, and even the church. Each clue was a thread in a tapestry of betrayal, and Eliza's pursuit of justice was as much a personal journey as a professional one. She grappled with her own past marriage that had stifled her, a society that dismissed her and her triumphs were hard-won, her failures humanizing. Poirot found himself captivated, not just by the plot, but by the voice behind it. This was Agatha at her most vulnerable, her most courageous. As he reached the novel's midpoint, a passage struck him with particular force. Eliza, standing on a fog-shrouded bridge over the Thames, reflected on her purpose. "I solve crimes not to restore order, but to uncover truth. The world may prefer its illusions, but I cannot live in them. To be a woman in this age is to fight a war no one acknowledges. My weapon is my mind, and I will wield it until the end." Poirot set the manuscript down, his heart heavy. He saw now why Agatha had hidden this work. In 1926, such a story would have been a lightning rod, inviting criticism from those who preferred their heroines docile, their mysteries safe. Even Now, its publication would spark debate. Feminist scholars would celebrate it. Traditionalists might decry it. And yet, Poirot could not shake the feeling that Agatha had wanted this story to be told, even if she lacked the courage to do so herself. He glanced at the clock. It was nearing midnight, and he had promised to meet Evelyn at a discreet cafe near Charing Cross the following morning. He needed her perspective, her insight into her grandmother's bond with Agatha. And he needed to know if she could bear to see the unseen truth exposed to the world. Closing the manuscript, Poirot retired to his bedroom, but sleep eluded him. His mind churned with images of Eliza Harcourt, of Agatha's hidden pain, of the manuscript's power to reshape history. The cafe was a quiet haven, its tables scattered with patrons reading newspapers or sipping coffee. Poirot arrived early, securing a corner booth where he could observe the entrance. Evelyn arrived precisely on time, her green coat replaced by a somber gray one, her satchel still clutched tightly. She slid into the booth, her eyes searching Poirot's face. "You've read it?" she said, not a question, but a statement. "Oui, mademoiselle," Poirot replied. "It is a work of genius, but also of great risk. I must know your thoughts. Do we publish the unseen truth, or do we honor Agatha's fear and keep it hidden?" Evelyn's fingers tightened around her satchel. "I've spent my life protecting her secret, Monsieur Poirot. My grandmother told me stories of Agatha's pain during those 11 days, her marriage crumbling, her identity as a writer under scrutiny. The unseen truth was her rebellion, but also her confession. She was afraid of what it would do to her career, her family. I don't know if I can betray that fear." Poirot nodded, his expression gentle. "And yet, mademoiselle, you have helped me find it. You have brought me to this moment. Is it not possible that you, too, believe it deserves to be seen?" Evelyn's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I want to honor her courage, but I'm afraid of what it will cost. Key world will judge her, dissect her. They'll say she was ungrateful for her success, that she overstepped her place." Poirot leaned forward, his voice low and earnest. "The world will always judge, mademoiselle, but Agatha was more than her public image. She was a woman of vision, of strength. This manuscript is proof of that. To hide it is to deny her truth." Evelyn looked away, her gaze fixed on the window where raindrops began to patter against the glass. "And what of Lord Ashburn? We publish, he'll stop at nothing to claim it. He's already sent men after you." Chapter 14. The Legacy Preserved. Hercule Poirot stood at the window of his London flat, gazing out at the city as dawn broke over the rooftops. The first light of July 14th, 2025, painted the skyline in hues of gold and rose, a fitting backdrop for the culmination of his most extraordinary case. On the table behind him lay Agatha Christie's diary, its secrets now fully unraveled, and beside it, a single page from the unseen truth. The manuscript that had consumed his thoughts for weeks, the novel, safely entrusted to Mr. Reginald Thorne's publishing house, was poised to reshape the literary world. But Poirot's work was not yet done. The decision to publish, the risks of exposure, and the lingering threat of Lord Ashburn's men weighed heavily on his mind. Yet, as he sipped his morning tisane, a sense of calm purpose settled over him. He had uncovered Agatha's truth, and now he would ensure her legacy endured. The journey to this moment had been arduous. From the anonymous letter that first hinted at a hidden diary to the perilous trek to the Lake District, Poirot had navigated a labyrinth of clues, ciphers, and dangers. The unseen truth, Agatha's revolutionary novel, written during her 1926 disappearance, was unlike anything she had published. A bold, feminist crime story centered on Eliza Harcourt, a detective who defied the constraints of her time. Its themes of gender, power, and identity were as provocative now as they would have been then. and Poirot had grappled with the moral weight of revealing it. To publish was to honor Agatha's courage. To conceal was to respect her fear. The end. He had chosen to bring her work into the light, but with conditions to protect her legacy from scandal. Poirot turned from the window, his eyes falling on the diary. Its final entry, written in Agatha's elegant hand, had guided his decision. It could undo everything, or it could set me free. He had seen the hope in those words, the flicker of a woman who wanted her truth to be known, even if she could not bear to reveal it herself. With Evelyn Price's reluctant blessing and Thorne's expertise, Poirot had set a plan in motion, a posthumous release of the unseen truth, accompanied by a foreword that would contextualize its significance, without exposing Agatha's personal vulnerabilities. The publication date was set for the following month, a quiet launch to test the waters before a wider release, but the path to this moment had not been without peril. Lord Ashburn, the obsessive collector who coveted the manuscript, had proven a formidable adversary. His men had pursued Poirot from Torquay to the Lake District, their greed driving them to violence. The decoy manuscript, a clever ruse crafted with Thorne's help, had thrown them off the trail, but Poirot knew Ashburn would not relent. The collector's resources were vast, his determination unyielding. As the publication date approached, Poirot would need to remain vigilant, ensuring the manuscript's safety until it was in the hands of readers. He settled into his armchair, the familiar comfort of his flat grounding him. The room was a study in order-polished furniture, neatly arranged books. A silver tray with its tisane set precisely in the center, yet his mind was anything but orderly. The implications of the unseen truth swirled in his thoughts. Would the world embrace Eliza Harcourt with her fierce intellect and defiance? Or would critics, as Evelyn feared, decry the novel as a betrayal of Agatha's cozy mysteries? Poirot's little gray cells, those tireless engines of deduction, churned through the possibilities, but one truth stood clear. This was not merely a novel. It was a testament to Agatha's complexity, a glimpse into the soul of a woman who had reshaped the genre while wrestling with her own identity. A knock at the door interrupted his reverie. Poirot rose, adjusting his tie with a practiced flick, and opened the door to find Evelyn Price. She wore a simple navy dress, her auburn hair loose for the first time, softening her usually severe demeanor. In her hand was a small envelope sealed with wax. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I wanted to see you before the publication. I brought something for you." Poirot gestured for her to enter. "Mademoiselle Price, it is a pleasure. Please, do sit. What is this gift you bring?" Evelyn took a seat, placing the envelope on the table. "It's a letter from my grandmother, Eleanor. Found it among her papers after we returned from the Lake District. She wrote it to Agatha, but never sent it. I thought you should read it before the book is released." Poirot's curiosity piqued. He broke the wax seal and unfolded the letter. The handwriting was precise, the ink faded but legible. "My dearest Agatha, I have read your manuscript, and I am in awe. The unseen truth is a triumph, a cry from your heart that the world must hear. I know you fear its power, its boldness, but I see in it the woman you are, brave, brilliant, unyielding. I will keep it safe, as you asked, but I hope one day you will find the courage to share it. If not, I trust it will find its way, as all truths do. Your friend Elena Poirot." Set the letter down, his throat tightening. "Mon Dieu," he murmured. "Your grandmother understood her, perhaps better than anyone." Evelyn nodded, her eyes glistening. She did. And she believed in Agatha's vision, even when Agatha doubted herself. "That's why I have agreed to the publication, Monsieur Poirot. I was afraid at first, but you've shown me that this is what she would have wanted." Poirot inclined his head, touched by her trust. We will honor them both, Mademoiselle Agatha and Eleanor. The foreword will make clear the context of the novel, its place in Agatha's life. It will be a celebration, not a scandal. Evelyn managed a small smile. I hope so. But what of Lord Ashburn? His men are still out there. I saw one near my lodgings yesterday, a man in a dark coat, watching from across the street. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Ashburn is persistent, but he will not prevail. I have taken precautions, mademoiselle. The manuscript is secure, and I have enlisted the aid of my friend Captain Hastings to monitor any suspicious activity. We will be ready. Evelyn seemed reassured, though her fingers still clutched the edge of her chair. And after the publication, what then? Then, Poirot said, his voice firm, we let the world decide. Agatha's legacy will evolve, as all great legacies do. And we, mademoiselle, will know we have done right by her. They spoke for a while longer, finalizing details for the launch. Poirot suggested a small ceremony, a private event for scholars and trusted literary figures, to introduce the unseen truth. Evelyn agreed, stipulating that her family's role remained anonymous. As she left, Poirot felt a pang of gratitude for her partnership. Without her, the manuscript might have remained hidden. A lost chapter of Agatha's life. The days leading to the publication were a flurry of activity. Poirot met daily with Thorne, reviewing proofs of the novel and drafting the foreword. He insisted on a tone that was both scholarly and respectful, emphasizing Agatha's courage without delving into her personal turmoil. The foreword read, in part, The Unseen Truth. Written during a pivotal moment in Agatha Christie's life, represents a daring departure from her known works. Conceived in 1926, it reflects the struggles and aspirations of a woman navigating a world that often sought to confine her. We present it now, not to overshadow her legacy, but to enrich it, revealing a facet of her genius that has remained unseen until this day. Thorne was meticulous, ensuring the manuscript was reproduced with care, its pages preserved for posterity. He also arranged for a secure printing facility, wary of leaks that might alert Ashburn or other collectors. Poirot, meanwhile, kept a close eye on the streets, noting any unfamiliar faces near his flat or Thorne's office. Captain Hastings, ever loyal, patrolled Charing Cross, reporting back on any suspicious activity. Twice, he spotted men matching the description of Ashburn's thugs, but they made no move. Perhaps deterred by the decoy's failure, as the publication date approached. Poirot's thoughts turned to the ceremony. He envisioned a quiet affair held in a private room at the British Library, where a select group of scholars, critics, and Christie enthusiasts would gather. The novel would be presented with minimal fanfare, allowing its words to speak for themselves. Poirot would attend incognito, posing as a Belgian literary scholar to avoid drawing attention. Evelyn, too, would be there, her presence a silent tribute to her grandmother. The night before the ceremony, Poirot sat alone in his flat, rereading passages from The Unseen Truth. One scene, in which Eliza Harcourt stood before a courtroom, her evidence dismantling a corrupt empire, struck him profoundly. Truth is not a gentle thing, Eliza declared. It is a storm, tearing down what is false, leaving only what endures. I am that storm, and I will not be silenced. Poirot closed the book, his heart full. This was why he had pursued the manuscript, why he had risked danger and deception. Agatha's voice, through Eliza, demanded to be heard. He would ensure it was. The ceremony took place on a crisp August evening. The British Library's reading room transformed into a haven of literary reverence. Poirot, disguised in a tweed suit and spectacles, mingled among the guests, his mustache carefully trimmed to avoid recognition. Evelyn stood near the back, her face partially obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. Thorne took the podium, his voice steady as he introduced the novel. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "we are here to unveil a lost masterpiece by Agatha Christie, a work that reveals her not only as the queen of crime, but as a visionary who dared to challenge her time. The unseen truth is a testament to her courage, and we are honored to share it with you." The audience, a mix of academics and devoted readers, listened in rapt silence as Thorne read the opening chapter. Eliza Harcourt's voice filled the room, her defiance sparking murmurs of awe and surprise. Poirot watched their faces, noting the scholars' furrowed brows, the readers' wide-eyed wonder. This was the moment he had worked for, the moment Agatha's truth reached the world. After the reading, copies of the novel were distributed, each bound in simple elegance. The cover bearing Agatha's name and a silhouette of a woman standing against a stormy sky. Poirot took one, slipping it into his satchel, and caught Evelyn's eye. She nodded, a silent acknowledgement of their shared victory, as the guests dispersed. Poirot lingered, his gaze sweeping the room for any sign of Ashburn's men. None appeared, but he remained cautious, knowing the collector's reach was long. He and Evelyn left separately, rendezvousing at a nearby tea shop to debrief. "It's done," Evelyn said, her voice trembling with relief. "The book is out there. They love it," Poirot replied, his mustache curving in a smile. "And they will continue to love it, mademoiselle. Agatha's legacy is secure, but it is also transformed. She is no longer just the queen of crime, she is a pioneer." Evelyn's eyes shone. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. I couldn't have done this without you." Poirot waved a hand modestly. "It is the little gray cells, mademoiselle. They serve the truth, always." In the weeks that followed, The Unseen Truth became a literary sensation. Reviews praised its boldness, with critics calling it a revelation and a feminist triumph. Scholars debated its place in Christie's oeuvre, while readers embraced Eliza Harcourt as a new icon. There were detractors, of course, those who clung to Agatha's traditional mysteries, but their voices were drowned out by the chorus of acclaim. Poirot followed the news from his flat, clipping reviews. In letters to the editor, he noted with satisfaction that no scandal emerged. The foreword had done its work, framing the novel as a triumph rather than a betrayal. Evelyn, true to her word, remained anonymous, her family's role known only to Poirot and Thorne. As for Lord Ashburn, his pursuit seemed to wane. The decoy had humiliated him, and the novel's public release diminished its value as a collector's prize. Poirot received word from Hastings that Ashburn's men had been spotted leaving London, perhaps in search of other treasures. Yet Poirot remained watchful, knowing greed could resurface. On a quiet evening, as summer faded into autumn, Poirot sat with a final cup of tisane, the novel open before him. He reread the last line, Eliza's parting words: "The truth is mine, and I will carry it forward, no matter the cost." He closed the book, his heart full. He had carried Agatha's truth forward, and in doing so, he had honored his creator. The case was closed. Poirot rose, adjusted his tie, and looked out at the city once more. London, with its secrets and stories, stretched before him, but for now, he was content. He had solved the greatest puzzle of all, not just a mystery, but the mystery of Agatha Christie herself. Chapter 15. The Truth Unveiled. Hercule Poirot sat in his impeccably ordered London flat, the familiar scent of chamomile tisane wafting from a porcelain cup on the table before him. The late summer light of August 2025 filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow across the room, where every object, from the polished mahogany desk to the neatly arranged bookshelves, reflected his love of symmetry and precision. Yet, despite the calm of his surroundings, Poirot's mind was a whirlwind of reflection. The publication of The Unseen Truth, Agatha Christie's hidden masterpiece, had sent ripples through the literary world. And though the launch had been a triumph, Poirot knew the story was not yet complete. There were loose ends to tie, truths to protect, and a lingering shadow Lord Ashburn could not be ignored. The past weeks had been a whirlwind. The quiet ceremony at the British Library, where the unseen truth was unveiled to a select group of scholars and enthusiasts, had sparked a fervor that Poirot had not fully anticipated. The novel, with its bold protagonist Eliza Harcourt, female detective who defied the conventions of 1920 society, had captivated readers. Reviews hailed it as a revolutionary work, a feminist milestone, and a revelation of Christie's genius. Yet, there were whispers of dissent, voices claiming the novel strayed too far from Agatha's traditional mysteries. Poirot had expected this, but the intensity of the debate underscored the manuscript's power. It was not merely a book, it was a challenge to the world's perception of its creator. Poirot's role in the discovery remained a secret, known only to Evelyn Price and Mr. Reginald Thorne, the publisher who had shepherded the novel to print. Evelyn, granddaughter of Agatha's confidant, Eleanor, had been a reluctant partner at first, her loyalty to her grandmother's promise warring with her desire to see Agatha's vision realized. But she had come to trust Poirot, and together they had ensured the manuscript's safety, outwitting Lord Ashburn's men through a clever decoy. Now, with the novel in the public's hands, Poirot felt a quiet satisfaction, but also a nagging unease. Ashburn, the obsessive collector who coveted the manuscript, had gone silent since the publication, but Poirot's instincts told him the man was not defeated. Greed, he knew, was a patient adversary. As he sipped his tisane, Poirot's thoughts turned to the diary, still resting in a locked drawer of his desk. Its final entry, written during Agatha's 1926 disappearance, had been his guide. It could undo everything, or it could set me free. The publication had fulfilled that hope, setting Agatha's truth free. Poirot wondered if there were more secrets hidden in her words, clues he had overlooked. He resolved to reread the diary to ensure no stone was left unturned. A knock at the door broke his reverie. Poirot rose, smoothing his immaculate suit, and opened the door to find Captain Hastings, his old friend and occasional confidant. Hastings, ever the picture of English reliability, wore a tweed jacket and a worried expression. "Poirot, old chap," Hastings said, stepping inside. "I've got news, and I'm afraid it's not good. I've just come from Charing Cross, spotted one of Ashburn's men loitering near Thorne's office. The same fellow from the auction, I'd wager. He didn't see me, but he's up to something." Poirot's mustache twitched, a sign of his mind shifting into high gear. "Mon ami, this is most troubling, but not unexpected. Lord Ashburn does not relinquish his desires so easily. Tell me, what did this man do?" Hastings settled into a chair, his brow furrowed. He was watching the office, taking notes. "I followed him to a pub nearby, where he met another chap, rough sort, looked like hired muscle. They were talking about securing the original before it's lost forever. I didn't catch more, but it's clear there after the manuscript." Poirot nodded, his eyes narrowing. "The original manuscript, they believe it holds value beyond the published book a collector's prize, but they do not know. It is safe in Thorne's vault, nor do they realize we are watching them. We must act swiftly, Hastings, to protect the unseen truth and ensure Ashburn's plans are thwarted." Hastings leaned forward, eager to help. "What's the plan, Poirot? Another decoy?" "Perhaps," Poirot said, his voice thoughtful. "But this time, we must be more cunning. Ashburn is clever. He will not fall for the same trick twice. We must lure him into the open, expose his intentions, and ensure he cannot interfere with the novel's legacy." Poirot's mind raced, piecing together a strategy. He would need Evelyn's cooperation, Thorne's resources, and Hastings' loyalty. But first, He needed to confirm the manuscript's safety. He telephoned Thorne, arranging an immediate meeting at the publisher's office. Then, turning to Hastings, he said, "Come, mon ami, we have work to do." The streets of London were bustling as Poirot and Hastings made their way to Charing Cross. The air was warm, the city alive with the hum of summer tourists and commuters. Poirot, dressed in his usual impeccable attire, moved with purpose, his cane tapping a steady rhythm on the pavement. Hastings, ever watchful, scanned the crowds for any sign of Ashburn's men. Thorne's office was a haven of quiet amid the chaos, its walls lined with books and manuscripts. The publisher greeted them warmly, though his eyes betrayed a hint of concern. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings," he said, gesturing to a pair of chairs. "I've heard the reviews. The Unseen Truth is a sensation, but I sense you're here about more than its success." "Indeed, Monsieur Thorne," Poirot said, seating himself. "We have reason to believe Lord Ashburn is planning to steal the original manuscript. His men have been seen near your office. We must ensure its safety and, if possible, put an end to his interference." Thorne's face paled. "The manuscript is in my vault, under lock and key. Only I and my senior editor have access. But Ashburn, he's relentless. I've heard rumors he's hired private investigators to track down rare Christie artifacts." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Then we shall use his obsession against him. I propose a trap, Monsieur Thorne. We will let it be known that the manuscript is being moved to a new location, a secure facility, perhaps. But in truth, we will keep it here, under heightened security. Ashburn's men will attempt to intercept the transfer, and we will catch them in the act." Hastings nodded approvingly. "Clever, Poirot. But how do we spread the word without arousing suspicion?" Poirot smiled, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "We shall use the literary grapevine, mon ami. A well-placed rumor, whispered in the right ears, will reach Ashburn's spies. I know just a persona bookseller with a penchant for gossip." "Leave it to Poirot," Thorne agreed, arranging for additional security at his office, including a discreet guard from a trusted agency. Poirot, meanwhile, contacted Evelyn, who was staying at a modest hotel nearby. She agreed to meet them that evening, bringing with her a small collection of Eleanor's letters that might offer further insight into Agatha's intentions. The plan was set in motion with precision. Poirot visited Mr. Grayson, the talkative bookseller from Charing Cross, and casually mentioned that Thorne was moving a valuable Christie manuscript to a secure facility outside London. Grayson's eyes lit up, and Poirot knew the rumor would spread like wildfire. By the next morning, Hastings reported that Ashburn's men were asking questions at local pubs. Their interest piqued. Evelyn arrived at Poirot's flat that evening, her satchel bulging with papers. She spread the letters on the table, their faded ink a testament to their age. "These are from my grandmother to Agatha," she said. "They don't mention the unseen truth directly, but they talk about her state of mind in 1926. I thought they might help us understand why she hid the novel." Poirot read the letters carefully, his mind cataloging every detail. One, dated December 1926, stood out. "Agatha, my dear, you must not let fear silence you. The unseen truth is your heart laid bare, a gift to those who will come after you. I know the world feels heavy now, but your words will light the way. Keep them safe, but do not let them die." Poirot set the letter down, his heart stirred. "Your grandmother was wise, mademoiselle. She saw what Agatha could not, that this novel was not just a risk, but a legacy. These letters will strengthen our forward, giving readers a glimpse into Agatha's courage." Evelyn nodded, her expression resolute. "I'm ready to see this through, Monsieur Poirot." "But what about Ashburn, if he gets his hands on the manuscript?" "He will not," Poirot said firmly. "Tomorrow we execute our plan. The trap is set, and Ashburn's men will walk into it." The following day, Poirot and Hastings positioned themselves near Thorne's office, hidden in a rented car with tinted windows. Thorne had arranged for a decoy transfer locked case, ostensibly containing the manuscript, to be driven to a facility in Kent. The case, in truth, held only blank pages, but its exterior was convincing, adorned with seals and locks to suggest value. A hired courier, briefed on the ruse, drove the car, while 2 security guards, secretly armed, rode along. Poirot watched as the courier left the office, the case in hand. Within minutes, a black sedan pulled out from a side street, tailing the courier at a discreet distance. Hastings tensed, but Poirot remained calm. Patience, mon ami, let them make their move. The chase led through London's outskirts, the sedan drawing closer as the courier approached a quiet stretch of road. Suddenly, a second car appeared, cutting off the courier's vehicle. 3 men emerged, their faces masked, one brandishing a crowbar. The guards leaped out, drawing their weapons, and a tense standoff ensued. Poirot, watching from a distance, nodded to Hastings. "Now, mon ami, alert the police." Hastings radioed a contact at Scotland Yard, who had been briefed on the operation. Within minutes, sirens wailed, and the masked men, caught off guard, attempted to flee. 2 were apprehended, the third escaping into the woods. The case was recovered, its contents revealed to be worthless, and the police took the men into custody. Poirot and Hastings returned to Thorne's office, where Evelyn awaited. "It worked," Thorne said, relief evident in his voice. "The police have the men, and they're talking. They admitted to working for Ashburn, though they claim he never meets them directly." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Then we have struck a blow, but not the final one. Ashburn will retreat, but he will not surrender. We must remain vigilant until the novel's impact is fully realized." The weeks that followed saw the unseen truth soar in popularity. Bookshops reported sellouts, and literary societies organized readings and discussions. Eliza Harcourt became a cultural icon, her image appearing on posters and social media, her words quoted by activists and scholars alike. Poirot, reading the reviews, felt a quiet pride. Absurd, bolstered by Eleanor's letters, had framed the novel as a triumph, deflecting potential scandal. Agatha's legacy, far from tarnished, was enriched, her complexity celebrated. Yet, Poirot remained watchful. He and Hastings continued to monitor Ashburn's movements, learning through contacts that the collector had retreated to his estate in the countryside. His plans disrupted, but not abandoned. Poirot knew they had won a battle, not the war. But for now, the manuscript was safe, its message resonating across the globe. One evening, as autumn's first chill settled over London, Poirot invited Evelyn to his flat for a final meeting. She arrived with a rare smile, holding a copy of The Unseen Truth. "They're calling it a masterpiece," she said. "My grandmother would be so proud." "As would Agatha," Poirot replied, pouring her a cup of tisane. "We have done what they could not, brought their truth to light. And you, mademoiselle, have honored your family's promise in a way they could not have foreseen." Evelyn's eyes softened. "And you, Monsieur Poirot, you've given Agatha a new voice. I can't thank you enough." Poirot waved a hand modestly. "It is the little gray cells, mademoiselle. They serve the truth, always." They sat incompanionable, silent, the novel between them, its pages a testament to their journey. Outside, London hummed with life, but within the flat, there was peace. The case was truly closed, the truth unveiled, and Agatha Christie's legacy preserved for generations to come. Poirot rose, adjusting his tie, and looked out at the city. The puzzle was solved, the storm weathered. He had uncovered not just a manuscript, but the heart of his creator, and in that he found his greatest triumph. Chapter 16. The Final Reckoning. Hercule sat in the familiar confines of his London flat. The late summer light of August 2025, casting long shadows across the room. The air was heavy with the scent of chamomile tisane, his preferred elixir for moments of deep contemplation. On the polished mahogany table before him rested a copy of The Unseen Truth. Its simple, yet elegant, cover a testament to the revolutionary work within. The novel, Agatha Christie's hidden masterpiece, had taken the literary world by storm since its release. Its protagonist, Eliza Harcourt, becoming a symbol of defiance and intellect. Yet, despite the triumph of its publication, Poirot's little gray cells remained restless. The shadow of Lord Ashburn, the relentless collector who coveted the original manuscript, loomed large, and Poirot sensed that the final chapter of this extraordinary case was yet to be written. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of acclaim and vigilance. The quiet launch at the British Library had sparked a global fascination with The Unseen Truth. Critics praised its bold feminist themes. Scholars debated its place in Christie's oeuvre. And readers embraced Eliza as a new literary icon. The forward, carefully crafted with input from Evelyn Price's grandmother's letters, had framed the novel as a triumph of courage, deflecting potential scandal. Poirot, posing as a Belgian literary scholar, had watched from the sidelines. His role in the discovery known only to Evelyn and Mr. Reginald Thorne, the publisher who had safeguarded the manuscript. Yet, the success of the novel had not come without cost. Lord Ashburn's men, thwarted by Poirot's decoy at King's Cross Station, had gone quiet, but Poirot knew better than to assume defeat. Ashburn was a man of wealth and obsession, his desire for rare literary artifacts unmatched. The original manuscript, secured in Thorne's vault, remained the prize that could tempt him to strike again. Poirot's instincts, honed by years of unraveling human motives, told him that Ashburn was biding his time, waiting for an opportunity to claim what he believed was his. Poirot sipped his tisane, his eyes drifting to Agatha's diary, which lay beside the novel. Its pages, now intimately familiar, held the key to his resolve. The final entry, written during her 1926 disappearance, echoed in his mind. It could undo everything, or it could set me free. The publication had fulfilled that hope, but Poirot wondered if there were still secrets to uncover, clues that might reveal more about Agatha's intentions or Ashburn's plans. He resolved to revisit the diary, to ensure no detail had been overlooked. A sharp knock at the door startled him from his thoughts. Poirot rose, adjusting his immaculate suit, and opened the door to find Captain Hastings, his loyal friend, looking unusually agitated. His tweed jacket was slightly askew, and his face bore the strain of urgency. "Poirot, old chap," Hastings said, stepping inside. "I've just come from Scotland Yard. They've had a tip of an anonymous call, claiming someone's planning to break into Thorne's office tonight. They think it's Ashburn's doing." Poirot's mustache twitched, his mind snapping into focus. Me. This is most significant. Ashburn grows bold. Did the police say more? Hastings shook his head. Not much, but they're sending a constable to keep watch. I told them we'd meet them there. Thorne's already been informed. He's in a panic. Poirot nodded, his eyes gleaming with determination. Okay, then we must act swiftly, Hastings. Okay, this is our chance to confront Ashburn's men and put an end to their pursuit. Call Mademoiselle Price. She must be warned. We meet at Thorne's office within the hour. Hastings hurried to the telephone, while Poirot retrieved his cane and hat, his mind already mapping out a strategy. Ashburn's audacity suggested desperation, but also opportunity. If Poirot could catch his men in the act, he might force the collector into the open, ending the threat once and for all. The streets of Charing Cross were alive with the hum of evening activity as Poirot, Hastings, and Evelyn converged on Thorne's office. The publisher's building, a modest structure tucked among bookshops and cafes. It was dark, save for a single light in the upstairs window. Thorn greeted them at the door, his face pale but resolute. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, ushering them inside. "The police are stationed nearby, but they're keeping a low profile. I've checked the vault. The manuscript is secure, but I'm worried if Ashburn's men get inside." "K. will not," Poirot said firmly. "We shall be ready, Monsieur Thorn. Tell me, what security measures are in place?" Thorn led them to the vault, a reinforced steel door hidden behind a bookcase in his office. "It's double-locked, with a combination only I know. The building has alarms, and the guards are on high alert. But Ashburn's men are resourceful. They've broken into secure locations before." Poirot's eyes swept the room, noting the windows, the ventilation grates, the potential points of entry. "We must assume they will attempt stealth, not force. Hastings, you and the police will watch the exterior. Mademoiselle Price, you will assist Monsieur Thorn inside. I shall remain here, near the vault, to observe." Evelyn, clutching her satchel, nodded. "What if they get past us?" Poirot's smile was grim. "They will not, mademoiselle. Hercule Poirot does not allow such failures." As they took their positions, the night grew still, the only sound the distant hum of traffic. Poirot stood in the shadows of the office, his senses attuned to every creak and whisper. Hours passed, the tension mounting, till a faint noise, a soft scrape at the back window, broke the silence. Poirot's heart quickened. He gestured to Thorn, who dimmed the lights and crept toward the window. Through the glass, he saw two figures, their silhouettes outlined against the streetlights. One held a tool, likely a glass cutter, while the other scanned the alley. Poirot signaled to Hastings, who was watching from a nearby doorway, and the police moved in, their footsteps silent but swift. The intruders, caught off guard, froze as floodlights illuminated the alley. "Police, hands up," the constable shouted. One man dropped his tool and raised his hands, but the other bolted, only to be tackled by Hastings, who had anticipated the escape. Poirot emerged from the office, his cane tapping as he approached the scene. The captured men, unmasked, were familiar hired thugs from the auction in the King's Cross decoy. The police cuffed them, and Poirot leaned in, his voice low and commanding. "You work for Lord Ashburn. Tell me, what was your plan?" The older man, his face bruised from Hastings' tackle, sneered. "You'll get nothing from me, Poirot. Ashburn pays better than you." Poirot's eyes narrowed. Perhaps, but the law does not bargain. We'll talk, or you will face the consequences." "Where is Ashburn now?" The man hesitated, then muttered. "He's at his estate in Kent. That's all I know." Chapter 16. The Final Reckoning. Hercule sat in the familiar confines of his London flat. The late summer light of August 2025 casting long shadows across the room. The air was heavy with the scent of chamomile tisane, his preferred elixir for moments of deep contemplation. On the polished mahogany table before him rested a copy of The Unseen Truth. Its simple, yet elegant, cover a testament to the revolutionary work within. The novel, Agatha Christie's hidden masterpiece, had taken the literary world by storm since its release. Its protagonist, Eliza Harcourt, becoming a symbol of defiance and intellect. Yet, despite the triumph of its publication, Poirot's little gray cells remained restless. The shadow of Lord Ashburn, the relentless collector who coveted the original manuscript, loomed large, and Poirot sensed that the final chapter of this extraordinary case was yet to be written. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of acclaim and vigilance. The quiet launch at the British Library had sparked a global fascination with The Unseen Truth. Critics praised its bold feminist themes. Scholars debated its place in Christie's oeuvre. And readers embraced Eliza as a new literary icon. The forward, carefully crafted, with input from Evelyn Price's grandmother's letters, had framed the novel as a triumph of courage, deflecting potential scandal. Poirot, posing as a Belgian literary scholar, had watched from the sidelines. His role in the discovery known only to Evelyn and Mr. Reginald Thorne, the publisher who had safeguarded the manuscript. Yet, the success of the novel had not come without cost. Lord Ashburn's men, thwarted by Poirot's decoy at King's Cross Station, had gone quiet, but Poirot knew better than to assume defeat. Ashburn was a man of wealth and obsession, his desire for rare literary artifacts unmatched. The original manuscript, secured in Thorne's vault, remained the prize that could tempt him to strike again. Poirot's instincts, honed by years of unraveling human motives, told him that Ashburn was biding his time, waiting for an opportunity to claim what he believed was his. Poirot sipped his tisane, his eyes drifting to Agatha's diary, which lay beside the novel. Its pages, now intimately familiar, held the key to his resolve. The final entry, written during her 1926 disappearance, echoed in his mind. It could undo everything, or it could set me free. The publication had fulfilled that hope, but Poirot wondered if there were still secrets to uncover, clues that might reveal more about Agatha's intentions or Ashburn's plans. He resolved to revisit the diary, to ensure no detail had been overlooked. A sharp knock at the door startled him from his thoughts. Poirot rose, adjusting his immaculate suit, and opened the door to find Captain Hastings, his loyal friend, looking unusually agitated. His tweed jacket was slightly askew, and his face bore the strain of urgency. "Poirot, old chap," Hastings said, stepping inside. "I've just come from Scotland Yard. They've had a tip of an anonymous call, claiming someone's planning to break into Thorne's office tonight. They think it's Ashburn's doing." Poirot's mustache twitched, his mind snapping into focus. "On me. This is most significant. Ashburn grows bold. Did the police say more?" Hastings shook his head. "Not much, but they're sending a constable to keep watch. I told them we'd meet them there. Thorne's already been informed. He's in a panic." Poirot nodded, his eyes gleaming with determination. Then we must act swiftly, Hastings. This is our chance to confront Ashburn's men and put an end to their pursuit. Call Mademoiselle Price. She must be warned. We meet at Thorne's office within the hour." Hastings hurried to the telephone, while Poirot retrieved his cane and hat, his mind already mapping out a strategy. Ashburn's audacity suggested desperation, but also opportunity. If Poirot could catch his men in the act, he might force the collector into the open, ending the threat once and for all. The streets of Charing Cross were alive with the hum of evening activity as Poirot, Hastings, and Evelyn converged on Thorne's office, the publisher's building, a modest structure tucked among bookshops and cafes. It was dark save for a single light in the upstairs window. Thorne greeted them at the door, his face pale but resolute. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, ushering them. Inside, the police are stationed nearby, but they're keeping a low profile. "I've checked the vault. The manuscript is secure, but I'm worried if Ashburn's men get inside." "Will not," Poirot said firmly. "We shall be ready, Monsieur Thorne. Tell me, what security measures are in place?" Thorne led them to the vault, a reinforced steel door hidden behind a bookcase in his office. "It's double-locked, with a combination only I know. The building has alarms, and the guards are on high alert. But Ashburn's men are resourceful. They've broken into secure locations before." Poirot's eyes swept the room, noting the windows, the ventilation grates, the potential points of entry. "We must assume they will attempt stealth, not force. Hastings, you and the police will watch the exterior. Mademoiselle Price, you will assist Monsieur Thorne inside. I shall remain here, near the vault, to observe." Evelyn, clutching her satchel, nodded. "What if they get past us?" Poirot's smile was grim. "They will not, mademoiselle. Hercule Poirot does not allow such failures. As they took their positions, the night grew still, the only sound the distant hum of traffic. Poirot stood in the shadows of the office, his senses attuned to every creak and whisper. Hours passed, the tension mounting, till a faint noise, a soft scrape at the back window, broke the silence. Poirot's heart quickened. He gestured to Thorne, who dimmed the lights and crept toward the window. Through the glass, he saw two figures, their silhouettes outlined against the streetlights. One held a tool, likely a glass cutter, while the other scanned the alley. Poirot signaled to Hastings, who was watching from a nearby doorway, and the police moved in, their footsteps silent but swift. The intruders, caught off guard, froze as floodlights illuminated the alley. "Police, hands up," the constable shouted. One man dropped his tool and raised his hands, but the other bolted, only to be tackled by Hastings, who had anticipated the escape. Poirot emerged from the office, his cane tapping as he approached the scene. The captured men, unmasked, were familiar hired thugs from the auction in the King's Cross decoy. The police cuffed them, and Poirot leaned in, his voice low and commanding. "You work for Lord Ashburn. Tell me, what was your plan?" The older man, his face bruised from Hastings' tackle, sneered. "You'll get nothing from me, Poirot. Ashburn pays better than you." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps, but the law does not bargain. We'll talk, or you will face the consequences." "Where is Ashburn now?" The man hesitated, then muttered, "He's at his estate in Kent. That's all I know." Chapter 17. A tribute to courage. Hercule Poirot sat in the familiar sanctuary of his London flat. The soft glow of a single lamp illuminating the room as the early evening of August 2025 settled over the city. The air was thick with the scent of chamomile tisane, its calming aroma a counterpoint to the restless energy of his thoughts. On the polished mahogany table before him lay a copy of The Unseen Truth, Agatha Christie's newly published masterpiece, its cover now a familiar sight in bookshops across the globe. Beside it rested her diary, its worn leather a silent testament to the secrets it had revealed. The novel's release had been a triumph, its protagonist, Eliza Harcourt, hailed as a literary icon, but Poirot's little gray cells were not yet at rest. The confrontation with Lord Ashburn had neutralized the immediate threat to the manuscript. Poirot sensed that the ripples of this case were far from settled. There was one final act to perform, a tribute to Agatha's courage, a gesture to ensure her legacy endured in the spirit. Sheer intent. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of acclaim and vigilance. The Unseen Truth had captivated the world, its bold feminist narrative sparking debates in literary circles and inspiring readers from London to New York. Eliza Harcourt, the fierce widow who solved crimes while challenging societal norms, had become a symbol of defiance, her image gracing posters, book club discussions, and even academic symposia. The foreword, crafted with care by Poirot, Evelyn Price, and publisher Reginald Thorne, had framed the novel as a testament to Agatha's genius, deflecting potential scandal by emphasizing her courage over her personal struggles. Yet, Poirot knew that the novel's success was only part of the story. There were still questions unanswered, threads of Agatha's life that lingered in the shadows, and the ever-present possibility that Lord Ashburn, though chastened, might resurface with new schemes. Poirot sipped his tisane, his eyes drifting to the diary. Its pages had guided him through this extraordinary case. From the mysterious letter that first hinted at a hidden secret to the perilous journey to the Lake District, where he and Evelyn had uncovered the manuscript. The diary's final entry, written during Agatha's 1926 disappearance, had been his lodestar. It could undo everything, or it could set me free. The publication had fulfilled that hope, but Poirot wondered if there were more truths to uncover, perhaps not in the diary, but in the legacy of the novel itself. He resolved to ensure that the Unseen Truth was not just a literary event, okay, but a lasting tribute to Agatha's vision, a beacon for future generations. A knock at the door broke his reverie. Poirot rose, smoothing his immaculate suit, and opened the door to find Evelyn Price, her auburn hair tied back, her face alight with a mixture of relief and anticipation. She carried a small leather case, its contents hidden but clearly significant. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, stepping inside, "I hope I'm not intruding. I brought something I think you'll want to see, papers from my grandmother's collection, found in a locked drawer at her old home. They're about Agatha, and I believe they could help us complete her story." Poirot's eyes gleamed with curiosity. "Mademoiselle Price, you are never an intrusion. Please, do sit and let us examine these treasures." Evelyn settled into a chair, opening the case to reveal a bundle of letters and notes, their edges yellowed, but their ink still legible. "These are from 1926 and 1927, she explained. "My grandmother, Eleanor, wrote them to herself, almost like a journal, after Agatha's disappearance. They mentioned the unseen truth and her hopes for its future." Poirot took the first letter, his fingers tracing the delicate handwriting. The words were heartfelt, a window into Eleanor's devotion to her friend. "December 20th, 1926. Agatha has returned, but she is changed. The unseen truth is her heart's work, a cry against the chains that bind her. She fears its power, but I see its promise. One day it must be shared, not for fame, but for truth. I will guard it until that day comes, as she asked, but I pray it finds a champion." Poirot set the letter down, his throat tightening. "Your grandmother was a true ally, mademoiselle. She saw what Agatha could not, that this novel was not a risk, but a gift. These letters will strengthen our tribute. They show Agatha's courage, her struggle, and her hope." Evelyn nodded, her eyes glistening. "I thought we could donate them to the British Library, alongside the manuscript, a permanent archive so future scholars can understand her fully." Poirot's mustache twitched in approval. "An excellent idea, mademoiselle. But we must also consider a public gesture, a tribute to ensure the unseen truth is not just read, but celebrated. I propose a literary festival dedicated to Agatha and her legacy, with Eliza Harcourt as its centerpiece. It will be a fitting capstone to our efforts." Evelyn's face lit up. "A festival. It's perfect. Could hold it in Torquay, her birthplace, and invite readers, scholars, even actors to perform scenes from the novel. It would keep her spirit alive." Poirot smiled, warming to the idea. And it will show the world that Agatha was more than her mysteries. She was a visionary. Let us meet with Monsieur Thorne tomorrow to plan this event. But first, we must ensure the manuscript and these letters are safe. Lord Ashburn, though quiet, remains a concern." Evelyn's expression darkened. "Do you think he'll try again? After the arrests?" Poirot's eyes narrowed. "He is a man of obsession, mademoiselle. His silence is strategic, not surrender. We must be vigilant, especially as the novel's fame grows. I will enlist Captain Hastings to monitor his movements." The next morning, Poirot and Evelyn met with Thorne at his office in Charing Cross. The publisher, buoyed by the novel's success, greeted them with enthusiasm. "Monsieur Poirot, Miss Price," he said, gesturing to a stack of glowing reviews. "The unseen truth is in its third printing. We're getting requests for translations, French, German, even Japanese. And now you propose the festival." "Indeed," Poirot said, seating himself. "A literary festival in Torquay, to celebrate Agatha's legacy and the impact of the unseen truth. It will feature readings, discussions, and performances, with Mademoiselle Price's family letters as a centerpiece, donated to the British Library for posterity." Thorne's eyes widened. "A splendid idea. I can coordinate with local authorities in Torquay and reach out to literary societies. We could schedule it for next spring when the town is vibrant with visitors." Evelyn produced the leather case, showing Thorne the letters. "These will add depth to the festival," she said. They show Agatha's heart, her fears, and her hopes. "I want people to see her as a woman, not just an icon." Thorne read a few passages, his expression softening. "These are extraordinary. They'll make the festival a true tribute. But what of security?" With all this attention, the manuscript could attract unwanted interest. Poirot nodded. "A valid concern, Monsieur Thorne. I propose we move the manuscript to the British Library now, under their security protocols. The letters can join it, creating a permanent Christie archive. As for Lord Ashburn, I have a plan to ensure he poses no further threat." Thorne agreed, arranging for the manuscript's transfer that afternoon. Poirot, meanwhile, contacted Captain Hastings, who reported that Ashburn had been spotted in London, meeting with a known antiquities dealer. "He's up to something, Poirot," Hastings said over the telephone. "I'll keep tabs on him." Bean, mon ami Poirot replied. "But we must do more than watch. We must draw him out, once and for all." Poirot's plan was a masterpiece of misdirection, as befitted his reputation. He spread a rumor through his network of literary contacts that the manuscript was being exhibited at a private gallery in Mayfair, a one-night event for select collectors. In truth, the manuscript would remain in Thorne's vault until it's transferred to the British Library, and the gallery would display a replica crafted with Thorne's expertise. Poirot enlisted the police, briefing them on the ruse, and positioned Hastings and a constable near the gallery to monitor any suspicious activity. That evening, the gallery buzzed with a small crowd of invited guest collectors, scholars, and a few carefully chosen journalists. Poirot, disguised in a tweed suit and spectacles, mingled among them, his eyes scanning for signs of Ashburn or his men. Evelyn, posing as a curator, stood near the replica manuscript, her calm demeanor masking her nerves as the clock struck 9. Poirot noticed a man in a dark overcoat slip into the gallery, his face partially obscured by a scarf. The man lingered near the display, his eyes fixed on the replica. Cairo signaled to Hastings, who nodded from across the room. 18. The man reached for the case, only to be met by two plainclothes officers who emerged from the shadows. "Hands up," one shouted, and the man froze, his scarf slipping to reveal a face. Poirot recognized one of Ashburn's hired thugs from the auction. The crowd gasped, but Poirot remained calm, stepping forward. "You were caught, monsieur," he said, his voice steady. 10. Your employer, Lord Ashburn, will find no prize here. The manuscript is safe, and your pursuit ends now." The man glared, but offered no resistance as the police cuffed him. A search of his pockets revealed a note with instructions from Ashburn confirming his involvement. The police, armed with this evidence, promised to raid Ashburn's estate, ensuring he faced justice. Evelyn joined Poirot, her relief palpable. "It's really over this time, isn't it?" "Oui, Mademoiselle," Poirot said, his mustache curving in a smile. "The manuscript is safe, and Ashburn's ambitions are thwarted. Now we can focus on the festival, a true tribute to Agatha's courage." The months that followed were a flurry of preparation. The Torquay Literary Festival, set for April 2026, took shape under Thorne's guidance, with Evelyn and Poirot as silent advisors. The event would feature readings from The Unseen Truth, panel discussions on Agatha's legacy, and a dramatic performance of Eliza Harcourt's key scenes. The British Library, now home to the manuscript and Eleanor's letters, agreed to sponsor a permanent exhibit, ensuring Agatha's story reached future generations. As spring approached, Poirot traveled to Torquay, his heart light with anticipation. The town, with its palm-lined promenade and shimmering sea, was a fitting stage for Agatha's tribute. The festival opened on a sunny morning, streets filled with visitors clutching copies of The Unseen Truth. Poirot once again disguised as a scholar, watched from the audience as Evelyn, now confident in her role, delivered the opening address. "We gather to celebrate Agatha Christie," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Not just as the queen of crime, but as a woman of courage, whose hidden work, the unseen truth, reveals her heart. This festival is her legacy, and we are its keepers." The crowd applauded, and Poirot felt a swell of pride. The readings were met with awe, the discussions with fervor, and the perforce stirring portrayal of Eliza confronting a corrupt magistrate brought tears to many eyes. Poirot, seated in the back, clapped softly, his mind drifting to Agatha's diary, to the woman who had poured her soul into these pages. As the festival drew to a close, Poirot and Evelyn walked along the Torquay seafront, the waves lapping gently against the shore. "We did it," Evelyn said, her voice soft. "Agatha's truth is out there and is changing how people see her." "Oui, mademoiselle," Poirot replied. "And it is changing how we see ourselves. You have honored your grandmother, and I have honored my creator." Evelyn smiled, a rare warmth in her eyes. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. Without you, none of this would have happened." Poirot waved a hand modestly. "It is the little gray cells, mademoiselle. They serve the truth, always." They parted ways, Evelyn to her quiet life, Poirot to his flat in London. As he sat that evening, a cup of tisane in hand, he opened the unseen truth one last time. Eliza's final words rang clear. "The truth is my strength, and I will carry it forward, no matter the cost." Poirot closed the book, his heart full. The case was closed, the tribute complete. Agatha's courage, her truth, her legacy, they were preserved, not just in words, but in the hearts of those who read them. Hercule Poirot, the detective born of her imagination, had given her the freedom she sought, and in that he found his own.